it's more about you using it first, right? So there's kind of like the federal registration part, which like really strengthens your existing rights. But I don't say at the end of the day, but trademark rights are both kind of who used it first and who registered first, kind of. Like if you use it first, I try to come in and try to use it after you, I'm gonna have a hard time, winning. So when we do our trademark work, we always tell our clients like, hey, once you have a name or logo or slogan, once you have what we call a bona fide intent to use, right? Like, hey, I'm going to do business underneath the name. I haven't just sold anything, but it's a serious plan. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and put the application in, because it kind of locks all your competitors out, and you can kind of lock it up until you get into business.
Hello, family and friends. Welcome to another Talks with Liem. This is available to the billions around the world on YouTube in 4K and audio streaming services like Pandora, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And now onto the podcast.
As long as we show up with t-shirts. two shirtless dudes.
Anyways, so Dan,
I went off this ride.
You do legal advice for smart entrepreneurs. Is that your tagline?
That's the name of my YouTube channel. I have, I want to say over 100 videos, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, dude, I could have been watching this whole time.
This whole time, man. You could have been subscribing and liking and commenting on my legal tips for smart entrepreneurs on YouTube channel.
I'm totally going to do that right now.
All right, YouTubers, audience, if you like our content, if you've been watching, I know you've been watching, I see the analytics, click subscribe, click like, and check out our Patreon. Also check out Dan's channel, Legal Advice for Smart Entrepreneurs. I will leave a link in the description below.
Wait, so is it no sexual harassment? Is that the gig?
That's kind of a mantra I have in my life, so I take it everywhere.
Wait, you have been harassed many times?
If I have, I may have not known it.
Or are you dealing with a lot of clients that are doing that?
No.
So handsy.
I deal mostly with the vice type businesses, you would say. Mostly. So I don't have to
non-vice businesses. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't have to deal with those. I would say maybe I've not had the opportunity to work with clients in that area. Yeah.
I misread that 100%.
So what's your main clientele, or let's start with what's your main business. So you're an attorney?
Yeah, I'm an attorney. This December will be 16 years. Licensed in the state of California. I practice new company formations, trademarks, and franchising, and we do offer a virtual in-house attorney membership program for business owners who kind of want longer relationship with an attorney, to need some strategy sessions, need a phone call. So those things we kind of offer to our clients.
Is that like
that need it?
Is that like a monthly subscription fee, and then they get like 2 hours a month or something with you?
Yeah, it depends on the tier, but yes, it's monthly subscription, no contracts. It's obviously, like I said before, it's for clients that want more, I don't want to say hands-on, but more access, I suppose, is maybe a better word.
What's kind of the most, what's the most common thing that they're coming in for? Like, so they're starting a business, or is it someone already that has an established business, or what's kind of the most common thing for you?
What's your average client look like?
Sure.
Yeah. So usually kind of a smaller type business. I usually deal with the decision makers. Probably under $50 million is the kind of revenue, and they either they are an existing business that need, they don't have, or they don't need it, or they don't have the budget for a full-time in-house attorney, on payroll, but they want someone that they can work, closely with on an outside counsel basis. So that's kind of the typical type of business owner that signs up for this type of membership program.
What would be kind of a place where they should get started? Meaning, say we did a podcast with that Dog and Whistle. His company, he's getting food from restaurants or places that the food's about to spoil. Then he's gonna prep that salmon for dogs and sell it. If he's a small company, is there a point do you think that he should? I guess I'm asking because I'm thinking if I had a small business, I wouldn't know. I might not know when I should get legal advice.
For the record, it's not about to spoil. It's upcycling.
Well, sorry.
That would otherwise get thrown away because of the supply chain logistics.
Sorry, that was poorly worded on my behalf.
But yeah, if somebody's got gourmet dog food, at what point would they need a lawyer? They need an attorney.
Generally speaking, probably any time. It's like when's the right time to plant a tree, right? And I think the better question, I'll kind of switch the question just a little bit, is, hey, when should you bring an attorney onto your team as a business owner? And so just like the tree, if you didn't hire one 20 years ago, the best time to hire one is today. And you can, again, depending on the level, your resources, the level of involvement or engagement you want, you can usually, have them at your, not disposal, but, at your,
in the toolbox
resource level. Yeah.
Are you California only, or are you able to go interstate?
I'm licensed in California. I do some of the federal work that I do. I can help anybody. But I do have clients in other states and other countries. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna get some federal trouble and call Dan.
I'm gonna become a hacker then.
That's federal.
Contact Dan. If I was starting a software piece of software by myself, so like I'm a software engineer, so I could potentially write 100% of the code before I release it as a product. I'm guessing from you're saying like growing a tree, I would probably want to contact you relatively early, or whether contacting you or just any lawyer, figure out some type of attorney that could help me out before I release it.
Yeah. Even before it's written, because either you, because I know some engineers, they kind of move over to the PM side, project management side, and they hire other engineers to do it. And then you hire freelancer engineers. But like in California, like if you want to own the code, right, then you have to enter into a very specific an agreement with the freelancer. But if you have these magic words, work for hire, that freelancer automatically becomes an employee where you're responsible for workers' comp and all the other stuff. So even before you hire these other freelancers, you want to kind of take into account like how can I own all this code if I'm hiring these freelancers, so that once I exit for $10 billion, they're not going to come after me.
Don't steal my good code.
Do you have any good stories whether currently or in the past, where clients should have contacted you earlier, and when they finally did, they're like, oh gosh, I'm so glad I found you, but it might have been too late?
They weren't that relieved in that sense, but they were kind of disappointed, not in more in the situation. So when we do our trademark work, we always tell our clients like, hey, once you have a name or logo or slogan, once you have what we call a bona fide intent to use, right? Like, hey, I'm going to do business underneath the name. I haven't just sold anything, but it's a serious plan. Go ahead and put the application in, because it kind of locks all your competitors out, and you can kind of lock it up until you get into business. I had one client one time, and I kind of they came to me and said, I want to get this name. So, okay. So we did the search and said, hey, there's someone already taken it from you, and here's who owns it. Because I know that person. I thought of this name 10 years ago, and I told him about it.
Oh.
And and so can't do much.
Oh, but can't you get the other guy for not having a bona fide intent to use?
No, they actually were in business already.
Oh, okay.
And had the registration, right? So they beat him to the punch. But if my client had submitted the application before the other party put in the application, they have a really good chance of getting the name, protecting the name.
Well, don't tell anybody. So I'm going to start a business called QuickBooks. I got a good plan.
Don't tell anybody, right? But this is going to be posted where? Yeah. And let me disclaim, anything you hear here is not legal advice. It's general legal information.
This is for entertainment and
entertainment purposes. Yep. Do your own research.
We're not financial advisors or legal advisors.
Yeah, we'll have to say that too eventually because we talk about cryptocurrency from time to time.
We're just three dudes in t-shirts.
Is the trademark process expensive, or what's I don't know, what's the typical ballpark price?
Yeah, so the filing fees right now range from about $250 to $375. And legal fees can go. I mean, technically, it's not legal fees. You can do legal Zoom for like $100.
Oh, okay.
And then attorneys obviously will charge much more. But I think you get a lot more with attorneys. And the thing that what we provide that those kind of do-it-yourself services, we're trained, and we call it issue spotting, but it's really asking the right questions, right? And clients, people who not in the game, so to speak, they don't know what they don't know, so they're not asking the right questions. And so the more, there's this thing that Tony Robbins says, like the better if you want to have the improve the quality for your life or your business, increase the quality of your questions. And so we're designed to we're trained to ask better questions to elicit potential like issues that come down the road. And so
you're an expert with experience in exactly this thing. Whereas somebody trying to write up a legal document on LegalZoom is
like me with the K1 visa, going through that process. I'm doing it myself. I'm so far we've been able to get everything, but I fear that I'm going to do something wrong. It's a stressful process to fill out every single question correctly and submit the right documentation, because you get like one document that says attach another one. That document says look at another document to get details of that document, and if you don't get it all together,
it's like a bunch of lawyers wrote it up.
Pretty much, yeah.
Just kidding. Yeah. It's a bunch of federal employees that wrote it up.
What's the like typical fee for lawyers? As in, is it like $500 an hour? What is that? And then does it vary from trade to trade too?
It does vary. I think much like doctors, there's different practice areas. Even among realtors, right? You got commercial, and then you got first-time buyers, and you got investment properties. So really, just depends from area to area. Even there's attorneys that do call insurance defense. So if you have you ever been in a car accident, and you guys probably don't see it because kind of a lot of it's behind the scenes, but sometimes insurance companies will get sued because they're not providing the coverage, or at least one side believes they're not providing the coverage that they should. So the insurance company has a defense attorney to defend, right? But because these types of cases happen all the time, it's kind of done on volume, so to speak. So maybe that insurance company has either one or even a handful of insurance defense firms that will just do work for them on a regular basis. Now, in exchange for kind of that regularity, they probably get an hourly discounted rate. So maybe even $100 an hour, $150 an hour, which is pretty low. Whereas corporate or even white collar crime defense attorneys probably, really high end, about $1,000 an hour at the really big firms.
Woo. What general tips would you have for the general audience, as in something that I went through, which was a car accident, and going through that, I wish I would have had a power of attorney, or someone to make calls for me while I was basically doped up on all these drugs and painkillers, where it was 6 months afterwards. I was like remembering back some of the memories. Like, man, I made those decisions under those conditions. That was kind of crazy. I wish I would have given someone like Emmett, just said, hey, like. But at that time, I think it would have been. It's tough to know because even when Emmett saw me under those conditions, he probably couldn't fully tell that I was.
Yeah, I always see you as a confident, independent, intelligent dude. So
thank you for that. I wasn't expecting that, but
no, I think you're awesome. So I wouldn't have thought, I need to step in and take care of my buddy.
Yeah, that's something. But I think that's a hairy or a gray area one because it was 6 months later that I felt that, wow, I wish I would have had somebody take care of everything. But I think Emmett probably didn't see that I was a little bit
loopy.
Yeah.
Right. So what you probably want is called a power of attorney, both medical and a financial. So like for the medical one, it's really for this person that you name to make medical decisions for you, whether and partly whether you want to like donate your organs, whether you want to be cremated or buried, anything that is not kind of listed in the document that you've already decided ahead of time on paper, then you kind of nominated Emmett to make those decisions for you. But for your particular situation, you're thinking about financial power of attorney for someone to make those particular decisions and maybe pay your mortgage or pay your bills, right? For you. And so those things everyone needs. And I mean, goodness, you survive, right? So you can kind of tell the story. But at that time in your hospital, that's kind of too late.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's very nuanced, but generally speaking, it's probably too late for you to execute something like that. And I've seen it happen a lot too, is like, hey, yeah, I want to get this done. I want to get this done. I want to get this done. And boom, they're in a coma or they're in a car accident or they're somewhere passed away.
It's a good thing you were in a coma. I would have pulled the plug on you. This guy's racking up a bill.
Yeah. And so like sometimes the family comes to me and say, hey, can we just, the only avenue we can get something is this other way to do it. And it's like tens of thousands of dollars.
Ooh,
and so it's like, yeah, you.
Okay. The next time you get in a wreck, I'm stepping in.
Yeah.
I'll start calling some shots.
Please do.
I'm going to start fighting for Liem.
Yeah.
But are you an organ donor, Dan?
I am.
What do you get out of organ donating?
I think, I'm dead. So I for me, just my decision is to get cremated. So take the organs
without
out.
your organs. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't take it with me. So
if you need an organ, is it cheap or expensive?
I don't know the answer to that. Sorry. If you need an organ,
I think, generally speaking, if you need an organ in the U.S.,
it's based on need too, right? And severity. So like, usually if you're like at risk of dying, then they'll bump you off the list. Cheap, I don't know. If you cover by medical insurance, I guess you don't have to pay that much out of pocket. Maybe.
Well, I just think it's weird that it costs so much for an organ, but the person supplying the organ gets zero.
Well, technically, the cost is mostly in the medical procedure. Technically, organs don't have any monetary value, even though you can like buy it on the black market, right? You can there, for certain, sure, there's a black market for organs, but like you can't just go on eBay and buy a kidney, right? Because that's illegal.
Yeah, and weird.
Yeah.
Oh well, so the doctor that does the organ transplant, he's making a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
The anesthesiologist is making a lot of money.
Yeah.
The nurses are making a lot of money. The hospital administrator is making a ton of money. The pharmaceuticals making a ton of money. The medical equipment, medical devices making a ton of money. Everybody in the entire process is making a ton of money, except the person that gave up the organ, which I don't understand. Like, say it costs $50,000 for a stomach or something. Like, can't you give something to the guy that gave up his stomach?
My guess is you could probably give him something nominal.
Yeah,
but you can't buy it from him.
Well, I mean, it would be after you're dead, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe don't get some money to the mom or something, or to a brother.
I mean, you don't want to incentivize somebody's organ harvesting is the hard part.
Yeah.
So maybe I think the best thing you could do is like a DMV credit of like $1,000, because that's where you check organ donor, right, at the DMV. So if you give me a credit,
maybe that might be a solution.
Yeah, if you give a credit of DMV fees, you know how many 18-year-olds would check yes in a heartbeat?
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't have a shortage free organs anymore.
You know what sucks is for you to make the, like, if you passionately felt strong about this, the amount of effort for you to like
Make that happen.
change your life to go through probably law, I'm guessing law school or something politically to get into government and then make that change. It would take forever, unfortunately, for a good idea. What seems
With that
like a
one
good idea.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
you just
have
gotta-
all
you-
the world's solutions right
You
here.
just gotta talk to your local government official and push it up the chain. You say, I'm a constituent.
Yeah.
This is an issue that's important to me.
All I need you to spend $10,000 to go to the dinner.
Yeah. Yep. Donation money. By
Fantastic.
the way, I think you just on your eyebrow, just like kind of.
Got some cocaine?
Yeah.
I'm not snoring it right.
Okay, I think you're good.
Okay, I feel like I totally derailed us.
All right, back to law. So, what when you went to college or university, was there a specific is there a specific category of study that you have to go through? How's that work?
No, so we get my undergrad degree was in business, but there's lots of people with hard science degrees, biology and engineering. They tend to go into patent law because obviously that type of background would really help in understanding of the sciences. But the very various different degrees and backgrounds. A lot of people go into law school, so you don't need to any particular. I think it's more about skill set because there's a lot of reading and a lot of writing. So if you kind of been trained to do that, it's a lot easier to do than if you had done studied something else that didn't require as much intensity.
Well, what advice would you have for someone if they're thinking about getting into your profession?
Study Latin.
Is that true?
No. No.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the consensus maybe 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago. But there's some Latin, but it's not enough where you have to learn it. It's not going to be beneficial. I think it's a waste. I think it's a waste of time to like major or minor in Latin, just so you can be better at law school.
I'm glad we have an expert to straighten out my bullshit.
Yeah. Don't take life advice from
This guy with a t-shirt.
So if someone wants to go, I would actually say have them shadow or work at a law firm for a little bit, because the school, like and anything else too, the education is much different than the actual work of it or practice of law. Yeah. So then that person can understand, like, hey, can I do this every day? And can I cut out for this every day? Yeah.
So what is law school like? Is it a lot of case study, or what's the
Yeah, we use it's called the Socratic Method. So a lot of it is you can't really keep your head down unless it's kind of a really larger class. But one of my professors made us stand up, like it's case study, right? So we'll study old cases because that's how laws are based out of. And so my professor go, all right, Mr. Wynn, can you tell us about this case? So I got to stand up. My class is I call it elective classes, so to speak. Obviously, they tend to be a little bit smaller than your general ed type classes. So, but even, between 20 and 30 people, right? I mean, you still do public speak. It's essentially public speaking. And so they put you on the spot and they ask hard questions. And so, so there's that. Lots of writing is required and kind of analysis. So you kind of have to look beyond what is written on the paper, and then you kind of have to make I won't say opinion, but you do have to analyze that in front of you. And that does take some skill or learned skill, right? Critical thinking and issue spotting, that's a learned skill. And so there's a lot of skill development, so to speak, a foundational skill development in law school. So don't expect to kind of get it right away. It's going to be really hard, especially the first year, if you're not used to these types of things. But by the second year, you're kind of just used to it and you kind of roll with it.
Was there did you say a major in business? That's what you?
Yeah.
So then did that naturally for you kind of progress to exactly what you're doing now, or was there deviations on the way for you?
It helped some, right? Because from time to time I look at financial statements and I can, all right, yeah, I've seen these things before. Because I deal with a lot of businesses and business owners, all right, so it's kind of a natural progression. But so it helps some as far as my foundation, my clientele. But if I did criminal law or wills more or some other area of the workers' compensation, all that stuff would have went out the window, right? And, yeah.
So I feel kind of stupid. I wouldn't know even what to contact you for. So explain to me, like I'm dumb, like what would be some general questions of business? They're just thinking about opening a business, or they have an issue with another business taking their name. What are some, maybe the top 5, top 10 items where people businesses should contact you?
Yeah. So probably the most common thing is like, hey, I want to start a new business. And I've heard these terms LLC and corporation. So like, which one should I start with? So, I'll ask them questions about their, what they're looking for, how, what type of business they're in, what the risk propensity is. Are you looking to raise outside capital? How big is your team? Things like where you're located, things like that. And I usually can guide them in the right direction and tell them, okay, this is probably what you want to do here, forming in this type of company in this state. So that's kind of one example of where one person would want to call me and discuss.
Yeah, give me quite a few more, because I do honestly feel stupid in this arena. So what other items would be common things for you?
Don't feel stupid, because obviously you didn't go to school for it. Like, I don't know anything about software engineering except format C, and I learned that the hard way. Okay. So maybe you have a name that you want to protect, right? Like what do you talks with Liem?
Talks with Liem
Lee. Okay. Maybe that's not protectable. Let's assume it was protectable. Okay, right? And say, hey, like this is getting some steam, and like I don't want someone else to rip this off, and maybe I want to license it, right, to mugs and T-shirts and something like that.
Oh yeah.
So so we'll say, hey, I don't want anyone else to steal this. What am I looking at? So something like this. Again, assuming it's protectable. I said, all right, let's make a quick search. Is someone else taking this? Anything else? All right. If no one else has taken it, or we kind of see there's probably a low risk of getting rejected, then it's all right. We'll move forward. Put in an application in, and right now it's taking about 12 months to actually 9 to 12 months to get to an examining attorney. So the trademark office still has to review the application, do their own review, a judgment call in a sense, right? But assuming there's no issues, it's taking about 12 months to get a registration.
Are you saying that talks with Liem Lee is not really trademarkable?
Perhaps. So with trademarks, and you can find more information on legal tips for smart entrepreneurs on YouTube.
Nice.
I like it.
There's we call trademark strength or trademark distinction. And think of it as a spectrum, right? On one end, they're weak trademarks, on one end, and they're strong trademarks, right? So
like Pepsi.
So that's a real strong one, because like assuming you didn't know, over the years, it as associated with soda, right?
Yeah.
But think about when Pepsi first started out, like you would go, what the hell is Pepsi? Or what the hell is a Pepsi, right? So that Pepsi is essentially a made up name. You can't find it in the dictionary. At least when it first started, you can't find the dictionary, right? Yeah. So those are what we're called arbitrary, and those are really good types of, we call them types of marks. Okay, and then the next level up, which is the strongest one you can get, is made up words. Okay, made up words that don't have any associations, like Xerox, right? You know what, that's not even a real word. Okay, those are that's a really good name. Kind of going back to the middle, right? There's things called suggestive, right? So things you have to think about, like Microsoft. Okay, so that is, you got to take like one more step, right? To think, okay, yes, it's a software, right? Yeah. So that's kind of in the middle. You can get away with that. There's lots of trademarks that get that. But you don't want to go like lower than that. Okay.
Oh, so you can't trademark "we sell bicycles."
No. Yeah, because that's and kind of to my next point is the one below is called descriptive trademarks, and you're basically telling people what you're selling or what you do.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can't do "we sell bicycles." Okay.
Jumbo bananas.
Yeah. There's kind of a nuance there, right? So you can protect it if you get on this other like shorter list. You don't get as much protection, but after 5 years, you can get on the Big Brother list, which is where you want. And then even lower than that is called generic, which is totally unpredictable, like bicycles, pizza, bananas, microphones. Those words are not protectable in it by itself, because basically the government says, hey, it's not fair for like one person to own these words, right?
Yeah, I can't trademark bananas.
But what about like Happy Birthday and Super Bowl? Aren't those two? Well, Super Bowl I could kind of more understand, but Happy Birthday I don't.
Or is it the song that's protected?
I don't know.
Yeah, so that's a copyright issue, which is related. So my understanding is that it is owned by somebody. So that's why when you go to restaurants, they don't sing that song. They sell some other, their own version.
Yeah.
And so that's protected by copyright.
I want to find who the evil person that copyrighted Happy Birthday is.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
Because they're not making any money by not allowing anybody to sing it.
Yeah. I mean, even if they did a more like in public, like allow people to do it in public, but if someone recorded it, put it for a commercial, maybe, I don't know if there's a copyright trademark for that type of thing.
Yeah.
Where if they license it out or to
where
make
they
money?
allow non-business usage,
Mm.
but then once you do it for business, then you got to pay. Like they have like open source stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't know too much about those particular nuances of copyright, but I mean, there are some like there's something called fair use, right? And a lot of it comes, affects the software industry.
Yeah.
If you use copyright works for like education or it's called scholarship, I think review, but there's no exception for like non-commercial use. So there, like teachers can use copyrighted material, basically to do as far as I know. And then obviously critics, right? Food critics, movie critics can show all this other stuff because that's one of the exceptions.
What if we rename this whole thing limification? Then can we trademark limification?
So then the second question asks like what goods are selling with it, or is it goods are associated with, or what are you selling, or what services is associated with that name? What are you attaching it to?
Entertainment content.
Okay, entertainment. So YouTube. So limification. Yeah, I think that's a good one, right? Because what does that really mean?
Yeah, you're gonna get limified.
Yeah. So if you can ask that question, then I think it can withstand.
Oh, dude, we're gonna trademark and.
So is it a bad idea that I have Talks with Lim Lee then as my brand? Is that from your eyes, is that a bad idea?
Yeah, it's not a strong brand. And so this kind of goes into the particular nuance of descriptive terms. So you can protect descriptive terms on what's called the supplemental register. So trademarks is divided into two lists. One's called the principal. You want to be on that one because it's like, that's a big bad list, right? You want to be there because it gives you the max protection, right?
Q-tip.
The supplemental register is like the redhead stepchild, right? That no one, right? But it's kind of better than nothing. So it doesn't offer as much protection, but like if you can't get anything else, it's better than nothing. So something like this, I would not be surprised if the examining attorney says, "Hey, this is descriptive because you're offering entertainment. You're just doing interviews." And you're talking with Liem, so there's no kind of creativity in a sense, right? And so, all right, so we're not gonna let you go on the principal register, but you have the option of going to the supplemental. All right, so.
Is it because the idea of a trademark is that you have created something that is valuable to a business? Where if you're just describing it with words, then you haven't created a new trademarkable idea or trademarkable.
Kind of, right?
Yeah.
So you think about like Sharp Electronics, right? So when they first came out for TVs, right? Sharp, like the definition of a TV can be described as a sharp definition. So the trademark office actually rejected it on the principal register because you're saying, hey, that's just descriptive of the quality of TV. It provides a sharp image. So they're not going to. But obviously, we know Sharp's been out for a very long time, and now obviously they sell different products, right? So over time, they've created the association of not just the quality of the picture, but like the actual electronic itself. They see, all right, when I see Sharp, I know television, not the quality not quality of the picture in a sense, but I know they're associated with television and electronics.
Would there be any? So this is funny that this podcast is turning out to trying to get legal advice for the name of my podcast, but that wasn't. It wasn't.
Here, it's worth every penny that you paid for it. Okay.
It was expensive.
This is not legal advice.
In the future, say my channel ramps up like I hope it does. Say in, I don't know, 6 months or a year, and then there's a guy named Dan Wing. He makes a podcast, but it's called Talks with Lim Lee also, and he's trying to steal my audience.
Yeah.
So do I have a legal, because my name is Lim Lee, so would I be able to take you to court and say, hey,
it's more about you using it first, right? So there's kind of like the federal registration part, which like really strengthens your existing rights. But I don't say at the end of the day, but trademark rights are both kind of who used it first and who registered first, kind of. So like if you use it first, I try to come in and try to use it after you, I'm going to have a hard time, winning. I may win like very small portions, but the other issue that I have is like, hey, like it's what's called, I don't know if it works with names, but there's something called intentionally misdescriptive, right? So you're like, my name's not Lim Lee, and I'm not the host, but why am I using Lim Lee? So they might ding me for intentionally or being misdescriptive,
intentionally misleading.
Yeah. So, and you think about trademark law, that's really it's really to protect the consumer, right? It's really to protect the consumer, so they know, so that when someone buys something, they know it's actually coming from the real party.
Oh, well, Lim's whole plan was to make a software program, an app, and he was going to call it Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah.
Are we allowed? We're not allowed to do that?
But no, are you being serious in the?
I'm totally joking.
No, I mean, as in for a case study, like say we start with this. I thought you were trying to say we start with this, and then for law reasons,
we can't call it Leisure Suit Larry.
No, I think you need to be more creative than that name. Okay, even though that game
Leisure Suit,
it's not been released for a very long time. You just gotta think of something else.
Fair use.
Yeah, Valora Vincent or something. I don't know.
What are some of the more interesting clients you've dealt with? Some of the legal stories that you've been through?
I'm trying to think. Nothing too crazy. I mean, some of the franchise work I do is pretty interesting because, I like to eat. So, it's cool to see some of these things coming out to life. But I don't have anything too crazy to share. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could if I had them.
Oh yeah, there's an attorney-client privilege, right? Or no, what do you call it? Is that the right word? Attorney-client secrecy, confidentiality. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Can't be airing everybody's business. Mm-hmm. Hey, there's an interesting one here in Vegas. So we have a lot of strip clubs where women take their clothes off for money, and it's just
you don't have to explain that part.
This has a lot.
I understood right away.
This is for our audience.
For those of you living under a rock that don't know what Pepsi is,
strip joint.
Sorry,
we have a lot of them in Vegas. One of the really famous ones is called Spearmint Rhino. And then a couple months ago, I had some friends who were like, oh, we ended up in front of this place called Peppermint Hippo. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I thought it was like an April Fool's joke of, it's so clearly Peppermint Hippo is a play on that other unique name. Mm-hmm. But it turns out it's a real place. I'm starting to see like advertising and stuff for it now. So I haven't been in there, but it's funny because I don't know how that works. Obviously, if I was Mr. Rhino, I'd be pretty pissed off at the hippo people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird. How close can you get?
Yeah, I don't do too much on the kind of infringement side, but I really would kind of come down to kind of two questions. One, like, is there actual confusion, right? Like, hey, is there a real legitimate case where, like, hey, I thought I was going to spearmint rhino, but this is peppermint. All right.
Yeah, I threw all this cash at the wrong place.
Yeah. And and then I guess the other question to ask is, like, would someone really mistake peppermint hippo, right?
I wonder what their logo looks like. Is it a hippo that looks like a rhino?
All right, please continue with serious legal talk while I search for.
Can you, Dan? Can you define me what your ballpark is and what it's not? Let me explain what I mean by that. So, as a software engineer, I am a back end programmer. There's nowadays a front end programmer. There's the database admin. Back in the day, back when I started 2003, I did everything. I was the network guy. I was the database guy. I was the front end programmer, back end programmer. So nowadays, when I go put a job resume somewhere and look for a job, I specifically say, if they ask, I'm either a full stack programmer or a back end programmer. Mm-hmm. Then I would, if someone were to ask, then I would define, I do programming with that C# SQL database, but I'm not great at like, say,
Python.
Python
Pascal.
would be still, no, those are still back end. So I wouldn't do I wouldn't do heavy CSS, heavy front end HTML. I still do that stuff, but that's not my specialty. So that's what. Mm-hmm. So what's your ballpark and what's not your ballpark?
Yeah, I think not anything, but like businesses and business owners with companies under 50 million is probably my sweet spot. And then even more specific, like anything new companies or even filing subsidiaries, right? Because maybe they want to spin off a new division. And then brand protection, which is the trademarks, or they want to expand their business through the use of the franchise model. Is probably my ballpark. Obviously, I do some work in other different areas, but like I don't do like white collar crime defense, like the CEO is embezzling money, right? Or I don't do bankruptcy where the company's really just gone out of business and they just trying to liquidate the assets and satisfy the credit as much as they can, satisfy the creditors. Or litigation, right? So there's a contract dispute between two companies. I don't handle those. I kind of know of it because I did a little bit about. I did some of it a long time ago, but that's not my specialty.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So, can you unlock it? So Emmett's
back to the hippo.
Peppermint hippo. I don't know if you could see this.
I don't know if we're allowed to show this on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll show it to the other camera. I don't know. I'm gonna record it, but I don't know. I don't know if I have to blur it out.
What's the idea here? Just to give people an idea that it's real.
I think it's funny that there is aspects.
It's not an infringement. They're not taking the other company's trademark or copyright or name or.
Well, I will say, without knowing too much about what's going on here, I know you guys have In-N-Out in Las Vegas, and they police their trademarks pretty strongly. So, I recall a case. It was actually called In-N-Out Cleaners, right? But not only did it have that name, the color scheme was the same: yellow and red and white.
With a big arrow, yeah.
With I think it did have an arrow. So they, they either they sued them or since the ceases. I probably think they sued them, right? And that company was in a state, if I recall correctly, not where an In-N-Out was located.
Oh,
okay. But with trademarks, they have both state and federal trademarks. But with federal trademarks, it's all nationwide. So technically, you don't have to be in that state to enforce your trademark. So, but you can tell by the color scheme, right? It's like, and the same name. It's like, well, this looks kind of familiar. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So back to the Talks with Lim Lee title. If I was using that name for, I think the big thing is like Google searching and YouTube, how the search algorithm, you want your name there because say I make this podcast, most likely someone that if they like the podcast, hopefully they just at least remember Lim Lee. They may not remember Talks with Lim Lee, but due to the searching algorithm, as soon as they search Lim Lee, it should pop up Talks with Lim Lee podcast. I'm thinking that's the marketing side. From a legal perspective, from what I'm hearing from you too, it's okay because even if you were to start a podcast with this name in a year from now, I've already used it a year ahead or 3 years ahead of you, whatever it is. So I should be all right. Does that sound?
Yeah, you have what's called priority, right? So you used it in a non-registered way because you didn't register the trademark, right? So you used it before me, and I'm making the assumption this is registrable because, like, if you come after me, one of the things I could say, well, this is like non-protectable, so you don't really have any rights to it. So that's one argument I may potentially make. But to expand on your point, I think there is kind of a dichotomy between the marketing department thinking of names and then the legal department with the trademarks. Because on one hand, trademarks you want strong names, but like you don't hearing it for the first time, you don't know what the heck they're selling, right? Yeah. But with the kind of a good marketing name, like you kind of there's some portion of it where the buying public will know what you're selling, right? And so kind of what's in the middle is like taglines, right? So you can even call that limification, Talks with Lim Lee, right? Your tagline could be Talks with Lim Lee. Talks with Lim Lee, let's just assume it's not protectable, but limification will probably be protectable. But you're right, as far as the marketing side and searching, right? That takes a long time to build out your Google juice to kind of get that where your Talks with Lim Lee will show up on the first page.
Yeah. Hashtag limification.
You know what sucks is I'm battling a chess master. There's a guy.
Dude, if he does a talk, you're fucked.
He's been on some podcasts. He has the same first, middle, and last name as I do, and he's the best Vietnamese chess master.
Yeah.
And he's I want to say he's.
We gotta get him on the podcast.
I've tried contacting him. We'll see if that
would be next level.
You gotta play a virtual match and see how you go, how fast you go down.
That'd be awesome, actually.
And then spend the next 2 hours and 55 minutes just talking.
That would be awesome. I would love that. I don't know. I talked to Kathy's dad, Scott, who back in the day he used to be pretty high in chess tournaments.
Oh, okay.
And I asked him, I think I do around, I could count about 7 to 8 moves ahead in chess. That's about my how good I am at chess. And I asked him, are you around like 11, 12, or 13? And he's like, well, nowadays that used to be older where you count your moves and that could tell you how good someone is. Mm-hmm. I'm going on a way tangent. Sorry about this. And then he's like, mostly it's strategy where you play so much. There's hundreds of strategies. So you want to memorize the strategies because there's kind of a semi-defined amount, even though there's unlimited moves, but it's where you stack your strongest pieces and whatnot and how you defend against it. So I forget where I was going with this story.
Yeah, if you max out on marketing, then nothing else matters because now you're getting the sales.
Yes. Man, I forgot. I had a reason to connect this, but I totally forget.
We're challenging Lim Lee, the chess master, to come onto the podcast.
Yeah.
Is he pretty good English, or is that
It's decent English, yeah.
Oh, dude, I want to challenge this dude. Two limbs in the same podcast. That'd be crazy. That would be total limification.
And the thing that would suck is I would be also battling him not only in chess but also on Google.
I think it'll probably screw up the algorithm with both of you show up on the same thing. Like they wouldn't know what to do.
Google would actually explode.
Yeah.
So
that's the moment.
The question I have, I'll explain it after I say it. How much would you say financially a company should invest legally? So like in the IT world, it's been a while since I've been in the big corporate world, but I thought I remember a figure that they said it was 50% of all corporation money should go into IT. That because you're buying hardware, you're buying the salaries, you're maintaining all that hardware, the network. And they say on average, a big corporation, 50% goes into.
That sounds like a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I might be mixing up the numbers, but even back then when I heard, I was like, holy crap. Then I started thinking about the salaries. It's mainly the servers and running the network and all electricity and all that, the air conditioning for
unless
the server
you sell
room.
Bicycles.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, what in legal terms, what do you think a business
should have a legal budget?
Yeah, legal budget. There you go.
Good question. I don't have a hard answer.
Oh, dude, that was your chance to say 50%.
Yeah. All right. So I mean, I just throw it out there, 75%, right? But I mean, with legal, it's for some companies hard to kind of put more money in for different scenarios, right? So like obviously if you're in litigation and your company's on the line, you're probably going to put as much money as you can do it before you fold the company to save the company. If you like start in the company, you probably use maybe 25% to kind of do all the incorporation stuff and issuing equity and things like that.
Or is it more like a one-time use, or not one time, but meaning?
No, it's a membership.
Well, that membership. So I mean, that membership is probably the price is so small to how much a company would make on that. So that would be.
It's a smart way to have an ongoing legal presence.
Yeah.
As opposed to stacking up a big bill.
Right. And that depends on the needs, right? If you kind of just need strategy sessions, but you need like full on execution on litigation. I mean, we don't do that, but that's kind of like a whole different ball game as far as needs go. But one thing about the legal budget too is it's hard to define an ROI on it for every dollar spent. It's not like ad spend where like, hey, if I put $1 in, am I getting $1 back out? Right. And so I think it's got to be easier to quantify for the bean counters to make if you want a hard number, then I think it's got to be easier to quantify. I don't have an answer, but I just kind of bring that up.
No, but what I'm investing in is I want a legal presence to make sure that I don't look stupid in court against Johnny Depp
or Amber.
Yeah, I think Johnny's winning already.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on Johnny Depp and Amber?
Is that my legal? This ain't court TV, so I can't say anything. I mean, I'm just following the pop culture stuff, right? And I'm following
entertainment as far as I can.
I'm following the short clips, but from what I'm seeing, it looks like Johnny Depp's quote unquote winning, but at least in the court of public opinion. But who knows? I mean, I'm not sitting in their courthouse. I don't know. I don't see how the judge is reacting and taking into account. So,
have you watched more than 5 minutes of video from that court hearing?
More than 5 minutes? Yeah, I think so. More than 5 minutes. Yeah. I was listening to Johnny's cross-examination, his attorney, about the $7 million. So I watched that for a little bit. That was kind of interesting. So I don't do a lot of court work, so it's kind of refreshing to kind of see how these litigators and trial attorneys work, and their particular skill set. So
I don't do a lot of $1 million things, so I like to see that.
You just watch Selling Sunset, right? All day long.
No, I can't watch any of those shows. Okay, so I have so as a realtor, I am kind of a business, right? Mm-hmm. So I own my primary residence, but I've started buying other properties to rent out, right? Mm-hmm. So those are rental investment properties, and I want to get LLCs for each property. Does that jibe with what your business advice might be? Yeah.
So I do a lot of those for real estate investing clients. The general advice I give is ideally you want to put each property in its own LLC, and kind of supplement all that with the insurance policy. Now, with that being said, you think about the idea of asset protection is really just to kind of throw up roadblocks for plaintiffs to just kind of slow them down and going after you, because you could have these crazy structures like, you know, Cayman Islands Trust and
now we're
all
talking.
that kind of, but the only you got the cost of maintenance, right? That's another thing. That's the kind of the biggest thing, and including that is your time, right? So I actually did a podcast with on my podcast, The Intentional Entrepreneurs, found on Spotify and on YouTube.
Nice.
I interviewed a CPA colleague of mine, and this is all he does is just real estate investors and agents, and we're talking about asset protection. He's like, hey, one thing that the clients don't really understand is like, if you do these multi-tiers, you still got to do the accounting, and it does cost more, right? Because now you got three sets of accounting books, and so that's something like a lot of these clients don't appreciate at the beginning.
What's the name of that episode? How do I find that episode?
I can't remember, something tax, real estate tax, but if you
just the dude's name,
Joseph Daron, Daron.
Okay, yeah, I'll find that podcast and watch it.
Watch it. Yeah, it's really good.
So you can talk me out of my shell corporation in the Bahamas.
I'm not saying don't do it. I would say just consider. You know,
well, is the idea that, hey, I own this rental property, I got some tenant in there, and if this tenant does something crazy like lights their own hair on fire, and then they try to come after me, you know, saying that I gave them a faulty microwave or something, right? Is that
That's basic. And then also, going after you personally, right? Because now you have, let's say, 3 or 4 other properties that if you didn't have these LLCs, potentially you'd have to liquidate one of them to satisfy the judgment. Now, you know, I mentioned insurance before is like, even if you have the LLCs, right? And assuming you didn't have insurance, you still gotta go find the attorney. You gotta pay the attorney. You gotta pay the settlement, right? All that stuff. So why I like insurance to kind of supplement it is because, you know, you just tender the claim to the insurance company, right? They go hire their attorney. They go pay the settlement out of your policy limit. So it's really good.
Is this a different insurance than a homeowner's insurance policy?
My understanding, homeowners insurance is, I guess, how you frame homeowners insurance, but anything that would protect you, I guess, as a landlord, is the insurance that you want.
Okay, so go to the insurance company and say, hey, I got a renter in here. What's the appropriate policy?
Right.
To cover my butt? Okay. I like that.
Yep.
Yeah, then I can mistreat people.
Like Jeff Bezos.
Is he a bad landlord?
I think he funded like $20 million worth of deals in 48 hours is what I read.
Damn.
Snapping up properties?
Yeah.
Wow.
So maybe he'll dump them like Zillow
did do dump,
yeah. Jumping way back to where you said you suggest people that want to get into the industry that they should try working at a law office first. What would be the timing of that? As in, should they already be done with should they have not started college yet, and you would suggest that they go test it out and see if they like it, or should they probably already be in their first?
What's a scenario?
I'm a fan of gap year, even though I didn't do it. I think if I look back, I probably would have taken a gap year, but like, you know, I'm Asian, so I just listen to my parents, and they'll shame me for not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wait, why aren't you a pharmacist?
Yeah, my mom's a pharmacist, but I was not smart. I was not smart enough. My dad told me to go to law school, so I'm like, okay.
That's funny. So if you could have done a gap year,
I probably would have. I don't know if I've been able to work long, because the market, it also depends on the market too, right? Like, you know, if the job market is weak, it's going to be harder. But there are some people that do work as clerks in a law firm. I think for me, I guess the point I was really getting to is just like try to get around the environment, observe the attorneys, right? And are they happy? Are they sad? Is this the area of law do you want to do? Because it can vary, right? Like family law, like divorce and custody, that's really emotional, right? And you have to, as a family law, you have to really be able to separate that against your work itself, right? So that's important. But if you can work as a clerk, and a friend of mine, he's actually a real estate investor, and he used to work as a clerk. He would tell me, hey, did you know I used to work in a law office before he became a elementary school teacher. Then he quit that and become a real estate investor and trainer full time. So nice. But you can go work, if you can go work at a law firm, but it doesn't have to be any particular time. I would just say just do it before you go to law school, so you understand what's it like on the other side, and know that school is not like working. Is completely different. So you don't drop $300,000 going to school.
That's great advice, because most other jobs you get, like, I've been to a pharmacy and I see them back there dealing with the pills, right? So I have some idea, right? But most of us haven't been in a legal office or courtroom. I mean, hopefully, generally not a good place to hang around, but so a lot of us young in our lives, we have no experience with that world. So that's a great idea to find some way, if you're interested in law, to get exposed to that world. Can anybody straight out of high school go apply to be a clerk of some kind?
Yeah. So obviously, again, it depends on the particular firm, and like at the lowest, I would say the lowest kind of administrative, there's like a filing clerk. So all you really have to do is just make sure the files go in the same place, right? Maybe you got to go pick up the mail, or go even the mail sorting room. You might won't get as much action with the attorneys, but I think the important thing is just kind of being around the environment, seeing what attorneys do every day, and if you would enjoy doing that every day. Because if you wouldn't, then don't go to law school, because it's not going to make you any happier doing it.
The route that you personally took, was there any roller coaster where you loved it and or hated it?
I was never on the extreme on either way. The roller coaster, there were some days where I didn't like it, and some days where I really loved it, like kind of like anything in life, right? And any business. So, but for me, it was never at the very polars on either side.
There's never a day where I really love being an accountant.
For software engineering, for me, was only the salary thing. That's the only thing that got to me. For whatever reason, whether my height or my race, I found that out. I felt like I was a decent software engineer, but the first 10 years of my career, I wasn't getting the pay raises or promotions similar to my white coworkers that were either taller or white, either whatever factors there were in there. So that was, it got me to the point where I actually disliked software engineering. I came very, very close to leaving it came very close to leaving it.
But that was that was more on the kind of HR side, not the actual doing the work, right? It was kind of more about the product of the environment, where like you weren't getting the recognition that you wanted, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So my brother's a software engineer. And so I remember him asking, he actually asked another friend of ours who's kind of not an engineer, but he did work for larger consumer electronic firms that it was tangential, but he asked him for advice. And so I was asking my brother, like, do you like it? Yeah. Cause he took all that advice from that particular person and, applied it. And as far as I know, he could have been close to quitting too. He didn't tell me, but
he's smiling through the tears.
Yeah, cashing the paychecks, I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember back then. I don't think I knew I was really unhappy. I just didn't. I don't remember picking something else. But luckily I didn't leave, because then eventually I was able to find that big break for myself.
Yeah, I think you're an amazing software engineer, because I've seen you start from scratch and build things, a whole system, a whole working thing.
Yeah.
And for most civilians that don't know anything about software, that's beyond incredible. Like, you made this computer do stuff that out of thin air, and now it does this amazing functionality and does it front to back, does everything top to bottom. So that's really cool to see.
A random tangent story on that. I met a Microsoft before he worked at Nokia and Microsoft bought him out. But either way, he was a Nokia employee, then Microsoft employee. He worked programming, I believe, some of the chips on the Nokia phones. And when I try to explain to him what type of software engineering I do, C#'s you would call it a high level programming language because there's so many things built below it. There's the language built by Microsoft. There's libraries built by all these people that import the
assembly
libraries.
language and the machine language.
Yeah, all that. It's his when he programs his, he says his is closer to machine code. Yeah. And then so he jokingly says, "You're not a fucking programmer." I'm like, dude, you're an asshole, man.
I just want to learn Python to automate my life.
Nice.
I hear Python's decent. What type of thing do you want to automate?
I was just joking. The only thing I just use Zapier to do some of the stuff, and if this, then that. So that's
it's like, I don't like the route that my robot vacuum takes. I want to do more circles.
I think you're using some of it, like what I was going to suggest is using a lot of built tools that you have the calendar one that you're using where people could schedule schedule your time by looking at your calendar. But yeah, I would suggest any of those online tools that they're so easy just to import into your life.
I can tell you this: we just bought a TV from Costco, and it's an LG, and it came with a magic remote. And you go to watch stuff on Netflix or whatever, it still feels like I'm using a 1990s remote, and it's got all this clicking around, and I got to type in one letter at a time to search for Top Gun. And it's such a weird thing. Like, I think everybody would rather just use their cell phone, right? Why can't you use your cell phone as a remote? Like Bluetooth to that remote or something, and have a much smoother interface.
Yeah.
You can just cast. I mean, if you're just watching Netflix or some of the apps, you just turn on Netflix, and then depends on the TV, of course, and then you just send it over, right?
I do that a lot.
But then aren't I burning
it from my understanding, when you cast like YouTube or Netflix, or I don't know if you could cast Netflix. I deal with YouTube. Yeah. It's not burning your battery because I think it swaps to your TV, and then the TV knows to use the Wi-Fi, so it just jumps it and tells the TV.
I'm not putting miles on my phone processor.
No, not real. I mean, just for the moments where you're clicking the video, click play, cast. So those 3 clicks, it goes to your phone. But after that, it's on the TV.
That's why I hate it, because I haven't figured out casting.
No, well, the other thing that this doesn't solve, though, is there may be apps on the phone or on the TV that's not on the phone. So, like, I'm guessing I know YouTube has the casting. I'm assuming probably the Netflix has the casting.
Yeah.
But if hopefully Hulu does. So anything that the main ones, any fringe ones, it probably doesn't have a.
It just felt weird to have a brand new TV and be annoyed. Like, I don't pay too much attention to TV, but I was like, oh, this should be a smooth, future process, and then it wasn't.
Yeah.
Maybe because I was trying to watch a movie from the 80s. Hey, Dan, what's your most popular podcast episode? Is there one that's been a big hit?
So one of my friends started a gourmet pop-up bakery during the pandemic.
Okay.
And so she's based out of Portland. And so that's probably been my most popular episode. And
because people love bakery stuff?
People love donuts. Apparently. So she makes donuts. She makes everything from scratch. So like if you get a cookies and cream donut, she makes the cream from scratch. She makes the cookie. She doesn't go buy Oreos.
Holy cow.
Right? She makes it all together. Yeah. So she's up trying to get a grant, $10,000 grant. So I sent an email blast to my list, say, hey, my friend's trying to win this contest, $10,000. So hopefully she wins it. Yeah. So that's the most popular one.
For this podcast, I was kind of surprised, which for a while it was that talk about the podcast where it was about psychedelics and cannabis. Mm-hmm. I kind of didn't think it would. I felt like it was just a conversation, but there's a lot of interest on YouTube. Then the one that's taking it over now is the one with the GI doctor,
Dr. Vig.
Dr. Vig. So I'm surprised that many people want to know about gastrointestinal.
People with stomach pain are searching YouTube.
Yeah. Maybe I need to make more podcasts about stomachs.
You eat too many fancy baked goods, you might have a stomach ache.
Dan, in the lawyer world, should I call it lawyer world, in attorney world,
in the legal
industry? In the legal world, does the name of the college you go to at the university matter that much? So let me kind of answer on the IT side, and maybe I'll give you ideas of also what I'm looking for. So in IT, the first 2 years is the toughest. So you get out of college, finding that first job. If you're able to just get your foot into any company for 2 years, even if you're not doing software, if you have to work help desk, it can vastly help the rest of your career. So once you get your first 2 years done, the name of your college usually doesn't matter unless it's something really massive like Harvard, MIT, or whatever. So I highly, my suggestion for people getting in IT is don't worry about the name of the college. It doesn't matter. It does, but it does. It's like you got to go to a super prestigious college.
So it depends where you want to work at, and even with that, not as much. Obviously, the more years you got under your belt. So in the legal world, like Princeton Review like dominates. You probably noticed like how they rank the colleges, right? So like top 14 is like the golden zone, right? So but it's like Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Columbia, like probably these brand name, but these well-known law schools, Ivy League basically, right? And they the largest firms who give out the biggest salaries, they typically recruit from these law schools. Okay, so if you want to go work for these large law firms, then you pretty much have to go to these schools. I don't want to say pretty much, it's almost a guarantee in a sense, because they recruit on campus, right? They're right there. If you don't mind this, if you just really want to like, hey, I don't really care that much, I just want to practice law, then it doesn't matter as much. But it's not to say like if you didn't go to a top 14 school, you can't go work at a large firm, because I know people who've done exactly that. They just kind of work a little bit longer, right? Or they graduate like at the top of their class at kind of a lower rank school.
I guess IT is kind of similar to that. Like say like if someone wanted to go work at Google right out of college, if you had a big name college, it would help. But if you don't, then like you're saying, you could try to go work at a different company for 2-4 years, do a stellar job, and beef up your resume, as in list all the big projects you worked on, and then go interview at Google and try to. What are you laughing at?
Because I went to San Diego State, and I chose accounting as a very pragmatic, like, hey, I want to have a career and get a job, right? I need a business degree. I got to pick something like. Accounting seems like there's always a million accounting jobs, so I chose it very like strategically. I had no idea that San Diego State at that time was one of the it was like top 5 West Coast accounting programs. So it was super competitive and super challenging, and I had no idea that I was signing up for this meat grinder of a program.
Oh man!
And if I had known, I certainly would have chose something else, because I wasn't looking for a challenge or looking to get into incredible public accounting firms. So it was kind of wasted on me. Like I should have if I could go back in time, I'd definitely do like finance or something instead. Not that the San Diego State has a good business program all around, but accounting in particular was just a brutal crusher.
Or maybe to reword it just for you, like you didn't like accounting, just you.
Yeah, like I didn't go into it like in a this is my dream and my passion, and this is my career, and I'm gonna be the best I could be kind of mentality. I was going into it like, I need to get a job. I need to, if I get a degree, then I'm pretty much guaranteed a great, career and stuff. So that was very strategic, like, how do I pay the bills kind of mentality.
Yeah.
As a freaking 20-year-old kid trying to figure stuff out.
All right. I'm going to flag myself on this next tangent I'm going to go on.
So with the new Leisure Suit Larry game.
So Dan, you're Vietnamese. I take it because your last name. I'm Vietnamese. Emmett's half Vietnamese. We're cousins. So when I started this podcast, I did have in mind one of the things I wanted to do was kind of try to this even starts even before this podcast. Even before this podcast, I had a video logging series called Some Vietnamese. That was kind of, I call it Some Vietnamese guy going around the world or doing this and that. So I was recording stuff in Vietnam and whatnot, and I wanted to share kind of the Vietnamese culture to Americans because not everyone should have to know Vietnamese, but I just figured it'd be nice to share the Vietnamese culture. Do you happen to have, where I'm getting at is like, do you happen to have thoughts about your career and being Vietnamese? Like you're saying your mom was a pharmacist and wanted you probably to go that route. For me, I actually, gosh, how long ago was it now? I don't remember. I was probably 7 years into my IT career, and I think my dad probably, I think his was more selfish. He wanted me to get into cutting hair or doing nails. And I was like, what? How could you even think that? I got 7 years into an IT career. Like, I think things are going to go way better this way than doing nails. There was a moment where I was at my low point with the IT career because I wasn't getting the pay raise that I wanted, or I didn't feel
like, damn, I should open a salon.
When there was a moment where when he said that, it like kind of stabbed me in the heart. I was like, fuck, like I can't defend myself right this moment. And, it took a while before I finally got that big break. And I actually send him I actually email the offer letters that I get from the new companies to show him like, hey, this is the salary I got now. He backed off eventually, but I think there's an aspect of whether it's being a parent or being Vietnamese or the culture of being in America where he still would like me to somehow get into buying a nail salon or something like that.
It's not too late.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to. But not that I have anything against it. It's just me personally. I'm not in that world at all. So I mean, just your Vietnamese heritage, does it come into play? The reason why I flagged is if you don't want to talk about this stuff, that's just fine too.
I think for at least for me, my parents were more about education. Like my mom's a pharmacist, right? So obviously that requires a lot of education. My dad actually has a PhD. My parents actually came here before the fall of Saigon. So they were here as students when the war broke out. And my dad helped resettle some of the refugees when they came out here. So that's why I'm in South Orange County. So obviously, Little Saigon, so largest contingent of Vietnamese outside of Vietnam. So education was big for them. And so that's why they wanted, and when I finished college, 9/11 broke out that September, my senior year. So before that, right, we're like, hey, this is .com, like I'm gonna apply everywhere and they can just hand out jobs like candy. But like, I remember that morning I was listening in my dorm, listening to my alarm clock radio. It was like so ominous. And so that's the event. And obviously the recession that happened, and I graduated outside the recession, during that recession, and I really didn't know what to do. And my dad, he's like, why don't you go to law school? So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And so, as Asians, it's really like four jobs or four careers, like doctor, lawyer, engineer, right?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't like nearly as smart as for the other particular two areas. And I will say there's kind of a law school for everybody these days. But again, for them, it was education, they wanted me to be very highly educated. And the only thing I look back, and I take full responsibility because of who I listened to, right? That was when, and I was 18, 19, 20. So I know back then, student loans were given out like everywhere, right? So that was kind of like that prime time where everyone can go to school for whatever costs, right? And so my and don't get me wrong, right? I have a really great business, and through my profession I've learned a lot. But I remember Gary Vee saying this, just like, hey, education is great, but like the numbers don't work out for a college education. How do you justify, right? If you think about the money in, money out, and how you going to pay it back, like if this was a business, it would have been failed a long time ago type of deal. So I still believe education is the way out of poverty, education and execution, I would say, but it's education is not necessarily just degrees, right? It's like all the businesses that you failed before you've hit gold, or how many jobs that you've applied for before you've you've hit it. So as far as culture goes, I actually was the very first, as far as I remember, like the very first Vietnamese in my class. So I kind of all the way up through third grade, I was like the only Vietnamese kid. My best friend was Korean. So we kind of grew up in a very obviously a minority, but as I grew up, as the school districts kind of changed and stuff, we got a lot more.
So you started Orange County?
Not me. I would say, I would say like my parents helped start part of it. My mom owned a pharmacy in Little Saigon for a little bit. And I remember all these pictures that they would have just of the city and things like that. So
those words from your parents, did they feel like pressure or did they feel like guidance? How did you receive it?
Well, yeah, you probably know, like the message from the mom is not really guidance. It's more pressure. But you know how they kind of word, massage that word, right? And they give you like the daggers to talk to say, right? So I won't say I fully regret going to law school. I just kind of fully regret how much it costs, or just school in general. I mean, it's just school in general. For me, I went to 2 private schools, and again, kind of go back to education. If it were to me, I would have gone to junior college for the first 2 years, but for them, it was a big deal for me to go to a 4-year school. I wasn't like the smartest guy, so like I didn't get to like a lot of the schools I wanted to get into, but I think probably if I got in junior college, I probably could have been able to transfer. And then there's something to be said, right? I graduated in 3.5 years. If I gone to 4-year public school, I'll probably graduate in 5 or 6 years. So there's that.
Hey, what's wrong with that?
No, nothing. Right? Like one of my cousin, he was like a lifelong student. So like, I don't.
No, I think you're addressing a very important point. Like if a kid today goes and gets $200,000 worth of loans to get a social work degree, it's going to be real hard to have a career that'll pay off that loan in some reasonable way. Yeah. Right.
And even to make it worse with inflation inflation and how cost of, it seems like all colleges are going up. So even if it's, I think when we looked at SDSU recently, was it $80,000 for was it an account?
Comparing what it used to be?
Yeah. 80,000. That seems, I don't know, like a tough pill to swallow if you don't even know what career you want yet.
Yeah, as a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get a accounting degree, that's actually a pretty good career return on investment, right? But if you're gonna get a psychology degree, like it's real hard to the higher that loan number goes, the harder it is to pay back on high-paying career.
Yeah, we just had
fields.
Renee, the psychologist, on yesterday, and if you remember from the first or second podcast with her, where she said, not until you get your PhD can you really do something with it. So that I mean, you have to go that's a lot of time and money.
Yeah. So if you know in your heart what your dream and what your career, what you want to do, if it's a burning desire, if you've had a gap year and you've had some experiences and you've seen the world a little bit, then that makes sense to strategically choose, making an investment in my education that will pay out. And in a lot of cases, it'd be smarter just to like go learn to be a welder or something, right? If you got bills to pay, then you really got to think about this stuff. If you got to put your own roof over your head and feed your own belly, you got to think smart about what loans you're taking out. And we see too many kids getting guided to take out gigantic loans that won't pay out. So, and personally, I think if it's a federal loan or if there's some government agency involved in that loan, there should be a reasonable thing of like, hey, if you're going to be an engineer, sure, we'll loan you $100,000 to become an engineer, right? But if you're going to study poetry, then how do you make back $100,000 on poetry, right? So I think there should be some reasonable limits on how much you can borrow depending on what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That makes sense. Dan, back on the you going to school in a minority area. For me, I went to a school in Santee, San Diego, which is like 99% white people. So I went to a school where I felt out of place, and there's good and bad of that. So I mentioned it on this podcast before, so I'll try to do it quickly so it's not too long if someone heard the other podcast. But it does something to the mind, because for me, being looking in the mirror, I see an Asian guy, but then everywhere I was in San Diego or Santee at that time, I was around white people, and later getting a job and trying to fit in. And I mean, as I got a job, I get to see more races of people, but it's still, you still carry that past with you, how it affected you being around all that. So I think there's stories from a lot of Asian Americans that we could share those stories. So anyway, yeah, I appreciate you mentioning your history and whatnot. When I went to college, luckily I enjoyed computers a lot, so yeah, I jumped right in. I couldn't imagine if I was in another set of shoes where take $50,000 loan later and you hate that career. That would, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, that'd just be terrible. It's a terrible system we have here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have an answer. It's terrible that it's set up.
Yeah. I think we do need, poets. I think we do need philosophers in our society. But I think it's a hard question to answer, is like, how do you justify the cost of that particular degree?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some merit to that particular position.
I have an accounting degree. I can tell you how to put a cost on it.
Yeah. The most favorite thing I love about accounting is reconciliation. At least, no, when I get the reconciliation, looking for that damn 1 penny is the worst part.
I was at a job one time. They paid me to show up every day, but they made me spend 2 days looking for 10 cents.
Oh, damn.
So you divide out the hourly cost of having me look through everything for the 10 cents.
Do you happen to remember when you said when you were going to college, you were the only Vietnamese, and then you had one friend that was Korean?
No, elementary school.
Oh, elementary. Okay.
Yeah. So my best friend was Korean. The 3rd grade, we got 2 more. One girl moved in, and then one was an immigrant from Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And I grew up, my parents, they knew English because I went to school here. So they were like, hey, you're in America, you got to learn English. So they spoke to me English. My Vietnamese is really bad. And so I couldn't really, the new student, his English was fair, but I couldn't communicate in his native language. That was kind of crazy. But as we kind of got more students in and more integration, and they kind of bust some other students because the way they moved our school district, I got more kind of Asian or more Vietnamese, Vietnamese friends, and I got to learn more about the Vietnamese culture through my friends that way. I remember actually, like, when it was New Year's, right? And like my mom would come in and say, hey, this is what we do as Vietnamese, right? We give out money, and this is the dance that our people go to. And so now for us and our family, what we do, like my son, he just finished a basketball season like a couple months ago. He's 8 years old, right? So
nice. Typically
the league we were in there, like we had like one other Asian kid, right? And so kind of as part of what we wanted to do to share, what we're from, is, hey, this is what we do. This is New Year's today or this week, right? This is what we do as a family to kind of, families and families. This is what we do. We give out envelopes to all the kids, and and things like that. So
Wait, you
that's
gave
what we
money
do.
to the whole basketball team?
There's like 5 kids, right? So like, you know,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I thought it was a deep
So-
squad.
No, man, we don't run like, you know, 12 deep and like, you know, travel to New York.
Backup
No,
center.
man, no. Yeah, it's just kids.
Cheerleaders and-
yeah, no. If it was like that, it's like, all right, this is what we do, and you know, go ask your other Asian friends for money. So like, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, that's nice. So you extended that cultural tradition to the team.
Yeah,
That's really,
yeah,
that's really
yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
It would have
yeah.
never occurred to me to do that.
Yeah, that's what we do, and it's funny. My friend's wife is from Vietnam. She came here when she was 8, right? So her Vietnamese is much better than mine, and so I learned my Vietnamese didn't get much better until I actually had kids. So you know, she taught me a lot, and my in-laws, their English is not that great, so I'm kind of forced to speak with them. So my Vietnamese is not awesome, but it's gotten much better since I've had kids and got married. So yeah.
My parents, when I was 5, my dad, I believe, had 3 jobs at the time. And so then he came home. This is the way I understand the story. It could be slightly different, but he came home one day and just said, we're teaching you 2 kids, me and my brother, we're teaching you English. That's it. There's no more Vietnamese in the house. I think having Vietnamese until the age of 5 did help me, because trying to pick up Vietnamese nowadays, I'm married to a Vietnamese person where I felt like within the last 3 years, I was able to pick it up a lot quicker. So something about, and scientifically, I've seen research that says the first 2 years is crucial for children. If you could get multiple languages in their ears, just hearing it alone helps a lot.
The seeds are planted.
Yeah.
I joke with my kids, like, I'm gonna send you guys to Vietnam for the summer. So you guys come back, your Vietnamese is better than mine. Yeah. They don't know about the hot summers in Vietnam yet. So
Yeah.
it'll be a rude awakening for them.
Just sweaty everywhere.
Yeah.
When's the last time you went to Vietnam?
Oh, it's been over 10 years ago.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Yeah. So we want to take our kids back, right? Because that's where their grandparents are from. So
Yeah.
and their mom. So
I think for any kid, it's a super valuable experience to see how other people live in other countries. It just opens their eyes to that the world is a different place. And it's so easy for kids in America to be spoiled and just have our insulated lives where everything's easy and, you know, food's everywhere and electronics and you can hear that other countries are poor or different, but until you see it with your own eyes, then it really sinks in a different way.
Right. It's nothing like, you know, having a kid try to sell you some stuff on the streets of Saigon, and it's totally different.
It's funny from our cousin Todd. Well, Todd, you're not here to back yourself up.
Defend yourself.
This is my story. So whenever Vietnam is brought up, and often the few times someone has asked Todd, have you been? He's, oh yeah, I've been quite a few times. Especially his dad was a pilot, or not a pilot. Sorry, not a pilot. He worked on the engines of airplanes. So he was an employee. So therefore they got flights very often. To go
employee
to Vietnam.
flights. Yeah.
Yeah. And whenever somebody asked Todd, like, did you like Vietnam? And he always would say, it's fucking hot. The bathrooms suck. It's just like he would just default to that, to the extent of every time I hear him talk about Vietnam, it felt like it was negative.
Yeah.
But then at some point he would say, oh yeah, you know, in this nice area in the north, they had these green grass, trees, rivers, blah, blah. It's beautiful. And then he'll talk about a little bit about the culture. And I'm like, I thought you hated Vietnam. He's like, no. There's a difference between being uncomfortable and appreciating the beauty of it. And I was like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Todd is a sophisticated dude. He surprises me because he's such a fun guy when you first meet him and you first talk to him, and he's a fun dude. And then the sophistication comes out, and you go, wow, this dude's got some depth. So he's a fun guy that way.
Yeah, going through respiratory school, like when he says he wants to get into the ER room, he wants to start working ER. He wants to see he's ready. He thinks he's mentally ready to see all the chaos.
Well, I think he likes the challenge and
yeah. But I mean, he talks about like seeing the blood and guts, and it doesn't bother him, and he kind of It seems like he kind of enjoys it.
Yeah,
You gotta enjoy it.
Is that your book on the shelf behind you, Dan?
Yeah.
What's-
So let me
what's-
grab it real quick.
What's your book called?
So it's called Making Your Mark, right? It's actually a book on trademarks.
Dude, that's where we talk about trademarks.
Yeah. So we got Amazon bestseller. Wrote it a couple years ago. So
Nice.
it's on available on Amazon, also at www.mytmbook.com, like my trademark book. So mytmbook.com. So
Dude, we waste our time asking all these questions. We could have just bought
just
the book.
bought the
just bought the book, man. So next time I book an appointment, it's like, dude, I'm gonna just send you the book. Just pay me
Wait,
when
is
you
the
want
book
it.
copyrighted? Is that the correct?
So with copyright, technically you owe it's copyrighted. It's protected by copyright. The moment the nerdy term is placed on a tangible medium. So anytime you actually write it on a piece of paper, even typing code, right, on the computer, that's on the chips, that's a tangible medium. So that's protected by copyright. What most people think is copyright is like when you got to basically file it with the Library of Congress. So one of the benefits of doing that is you get what's called treble damage or triple damage. So if you actually had to sue somebody for copyright infringement, if you have the registration with the Library of Congress, you can just say, hey, like, I don't need to prove to you how much money I lost from infringing. The law allows me to, it's called statutory damage. It's like, hey, the law says I get a minimum of $800 per violation. I think that's what it is. So that's kind of the benefit of registration, but you automatically get copyright protection when you put it down somewhere.
Wait, would that be like $800 per sentence I copied out of your book?
It's basically $800 per violation, but copyright has to be kind of a creative, like, right? It has to be creative in a sense. Like you can't write like the brown fox jumps over the moon. Yeah, that's no. You've probably seen that somewhere else too, but there's no creativity in that. So
I thought it was a brown cow.
Brown, whatever it is.
I don't know. I don't even know. So I don't. If this is out of your wheelhouse, feel free to say it. I had an employer on the employee documentation when you start a job, and I was reading some of the fine print. That employer had a clause in it that said any software that you create outside of work for during your duration here, that is property of the company. Meaning, from what I extrapolated from that. So say I work there for 8 hours, I come home and I create something not even related to that company. I create a video game.
Yeah.
That is technical, or according to the writing of that paper, that is his property. Is that legal? Is that
good question? I don't know the exact, and I would say labor law is also kind of state dependent too. So what might be okay in California might not be okay in Nevada, or wherever you guys are in.
Nevada.
And so, I understand why employers might want it, but then I also understand why employees, like, you got a side project, which a lot of software engineers do, right? They want to have another side project that they want to keep their IP. So, so that's really important to have to like understand that, hey, if I sign this, am I signing over my rights? And that'll help you decide whether you want to actually take the job or maybe counter offer. It's like, no, dude, I got these side projects, and like, hey, if it's not related to this company, then it's side keep. And if it's related to this, and even related, right? You can try to make arguments, but you try to make it clear as possible. It says like, hey, anything I work on outside of the company, then it's mine. So
yeah, because for a while you were working on like a Texas Hold'em AI thing, right? So that shouldn't be related.
A what?
A bot?
Yeah. I was trying to create what I considered an AI system, but it actually what I know now, I wouldn't consider it AI. It was, well, I mean, the way they talk about AI and modeling. Anyways, it was, you would model data that in the database where it would weight questions. So questions to itself, like, do you know much about Texas Hold'em? Do you know?
A little bit.
So there's terms like under the gun. So if you're after the big blind on once all the cards are dealt, that causes you to play usually more conservative because you're the first to act. Everybody could see your action first. You don't get to react to them; they're reacting to you. So I have a weight on that question. I had something like 120 questions in the database, and it was growing, and each one had a weight. and then I was going to have it. I didn't get to the point where I was going to have the AI play each other, and then I was going to have my friends play the AI, and then I could change the weights, or I could add more questions to it. And I forget where we're.
So if you had built that on the side, that should be unrelated to any job.
Yeah, I would feel like so, but under that clause,
yeah, they shouldn't be able to say, "Oh, you built us in a Texas Hold'em game."
Yeah. Jumping a bit earlier to some of the things you said, I felt, and just correct me if I'm wrong or however you want to answer it, but I felt like you put an undertone on your thoughts on your studies. Like you said, your mom or your dad said you weren't smart enough to be a pharmacist, so you went to become.
No, that was I knew I was not smart enough because like I hated chemistry, I hated biology. So like I knew I actually was going to school to become a physical therapist, because what happened was in 8th grade, I sprained my ankle. And at that, I played a lot of sports. So like up until about 6th grade, I thought I was gonna be a professional athlete, right? And so like when I didn't grow past into high school, like I stopped growing in 8th grade. So like I realized like, okay, I gotta figure this out. So I kind of want to be around athletes and stuff, and like, you know, kind of high paying suit-ish professionals. Like I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor, and now physical therapists are technically doctors, but back then they didn't have to get that. So I was like, oh, maybe we can become physical therapists. And between high school and then I went to college, and it's like at my school, to the track to become a physical therapist at the graduate school level, either biology or physical education. So I hated biology, so like, let me take physical education. Then I took human anatomy. I was like, for a semester, like, forget this. I'm switching. I don't like looking at bones all day. So that's when I decided not to do something else.
Wait, what did you dislike about human anatomy so much?
Yeah, it's just I couldn't look at bones and body parts all day. For me,
you were disinterested, or was
boring, or? I was probably more interested in what was beyond like body mechanics and things like. But obviously, you have to take all that foundational courses. But I was like, it's not, to me. It wasn't. I didn't want to go through all that just to learn out the next level stuff. So I was like, I made the right decision. I enjoy business much more.
Yeah, I think when I was at San Diego State, there was like some alarming number of kinesiology degrees being studied and pursued and granted, and we're pumping out all these kinesiology degree holders. And it's like, well, then what job do you get?
Personal trainer. You can't. I actually interviewed a personal trainer and then a physical therapist. Yeah, the physical therapist, like Dan was saying, you're basically a doctor. Like you have to go through all that schooling, but a personal trainer, you don't have to go through all that training. But it is interesting. I think when you find someone that knows their skill or craft, because when I interviewed that, it was Kevin. He the way he explained, because there's certain, like one story, maybe it was just an amazing story. I don't know if it's replicatable.
Non-amazing people don't come on this podcast. They don't get limification.
He had a female client that was complaining about, I forget, hip. No. It was shoulder, something like shoulder pain. YouTube audience, go watch that interview.
Her uterus was hurting.
but then, so her insurance company just wanted her to go in for the shoulder pain. Yeah, I'm probably screwing that. It was some other part, but then, because the next part, then he figured out it had to do with her hip that was connected, and so he just said, hey, you're sitting at home playing too many video games. She was like an esports gamer or something, spending 8 or 12 hours a day playing games. He said, just go for a walk for 30 minutes a day. This should alleviate your hip, and then that'll go to I forget if it was her shoulder, but it should go up to that other part that was bothering her. But the insurance company, they don't give a shit. They have the money. They want the cheapest, what they think is the cheapest route. Go get physical training on your shoulder. Yeah. But once you figure out it was all from the hip that caused the problem upwards, and then she's all fine. She just goes for a walk 30 minutes a day, and that's it.
Who knew? Physical activity.
Yeah. So anyway, I think now, I don't know if that's jumping to your thought, where giving all those kinesiology degrees. Yeah. Like I don't.
No, he's a dude that's successful at it. I bet there's, for every awesome guy like that, there's 100 kinesiology degrees that are not in the field, and they're paying off the student loan on something they ain't doing. So there's a failure to analyze the return on that investment.
Yeah. Dan, when I was saying where I thought you had an undertone that you thought being an attorney was easy or easier.
What are you digging at? What are you trying to get him to admit?
I think your answer to my question could go either way. So in my mind, when I think of the word attorney, I'm like, holy fuck, that's a lot of probably reading the laws, knowing the laws. It doesn't sound easy. I think I'm betting that if you ask 95% of people, if you ask them, do you think going to school to be an attorney would be difficult, or working as an attorney would be difficult? I bet 95% of people would say yes, right?
Yeah, we think that's a challenging degree and job to do. Yeah.
So in your opinion, Dan, what do you kind of think? Do you think it was harder than you thought, or was it actually easy and you want to give motivation to everyone? Hey, if you want to try this, go try it.
No, we don't need more lawyers.
I'm not one to dash on someone's dreams, right? But I would say, like, you gotta, just don't go blindly into it, right? I think part of chasing your dreams is kind of weighing, what's it really like? Because what you don't want, it's almost like a thing. There's a saying like, hey, you really don't want to meet your heroes, because sometimes they turn out jerks, right? Right, whatever profession that you desire in high school or even college may not be what it really is. So, it's fine to chase your dreams, keep doing all the things you need to do it, but kind of be more practical about it and find out the day-to-day. So I actually used to teach a class on law practice management. So it's basically how to run your own law office, right? And these are all law school students. So I said, hey, go shadow an attorney and just write up these things, write it up, right? Yeah. And it was part there's the practice of law, right? All the legal stuff. And then for them too, because of the type of classes, like running a law office, there's like the business side. So there's kind of double-edged swords for us. It's kind of solo, small firm practitioners, because we don't have a large staff. We don't have a large base of associates that handle this. We typically do a lot of the work on top of running the business itself, right? Yeah. And so but the opportunity is there. We live in the greatest country in the world for opportunity to make what you want, right? And so there will most likely be failures for you on that road, but if you really want it bad enough, if you stick with it long enough, there's a pot at the end of the road for you.
A pot of gold.
Yeah.
I'll give you my outtake on IT, and then I don't know if you guys want to share either side. I think from the attorney side, I would be interested. But so
you could get a law degree right now, Liem.
At times when I hear the $500, $600 an hour, it's probably gone up since the last time I've heard that. I don't know, but that sounds like a lot of money. But in IT, if you're okay with less than 90,000, this is going to sound funky, but I'll try to explain it all. If you're okay with less than $90,000 a year at current prices, I think, if I was saying this even 4 years ago, I probably would have brought it down to 70,000. If you're okay with 90,000 and under for your entire life, I think almost anybody could be a software engineer. Now,
what are you talking about? That's a lot of money.
Well, here's the caveats. And if you're a good software engineer, the sky's the limit. You could make 140, 150, 250, up to the 400,000 a year.
Yeah.
But I think you got to be a very good software engineer. What I mean by a good software engineer, what I would define it as, there's certain conceptual things you have to understand with programming. You got a database that is a normalized database. There's ways that the data moves, and your mind has to be able to conceptualize that. And there's code that also does very similar things. I don't know a better way to really explain that. But what I'm getting at is, to be a good software engineer, you have to be able to conceptualize and move those things and have them interact. And some of those are in groups that can't be moved easily, and you have to know those rules of programming, or you have to be able to conceptualize it. There's people, I think, that just can't. I'm not trying to say software engineering is such a hard job and only I could do it. I'm one of the smart people. I know there's a lot of other programmers that are better than me, But if someone wants over 90,000 a year, I highly suggest you should have that type of brain.
No, but you just said I could be a mediocre programmer for 80 grand.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Most jobs don't pay that much.
It's still not super easy, but
I could just show up and suck, right?
There's some programmers that do. So I don't know if that in the attorney world, if there's an analogy to.
It's called public defender.
Oh man,
you're not billing up the yin yang.
You just got like 4 unsubscribers.
Please like and subscribe to replace the people that get pissed off by him too often.
I don't know what's going through Danny's mind.
Well, no, I mean, I think the ones who can make really creative legal analysis and be very persuasive, like typically, like the high profile ones are obviously one of the higher paying ones, and they can handle not just the legal side of it, but then, you know, there's the quote unquote public side of it, right? So like, especially with white collar crime type cases, obviously like murder, you know, high profile murder cases, as far as I understand, like those, at least for the murder type cases, right? You kind of, some people won't collect on the payment on these high profile early ones, but what you're doing it for is the next case.
Oh,
right. It's because now, dude, I seen this guy on TV, because, you know, the court TV is analyzing his, you know, his arguments all day long, right? So
if I can help OJ get away with murder, then my family will be famous on TV forever. Is that what we're talking about?
And it'll just take 20 years for the Bronco to come back.
They interrupted like Game 6 of the NBA Finals, because I remember watching the Rockets versus whoever was playing, and then the corner right there. No, it was the other way around. The Bronco chase on TV, and then the top corner on the TV, because they kind of did the picture-in-picture of the NBA Finals. It's like, I like watching both, but I was like, oh, come on, man.
Was this the Olajuwon days?
Yeah, that was the in between the Jordan's three-peats, 24. Yeah.
Is there a way? I think it's hard to define it or describe it, but like you're saying, someone that has to be able to imagine or go through the paperwork and kind of imagine, decipher, and describe, and almost in a way sales pitch, not sales pitch, but you still got to sell the
present
angle.
A case.
Yeah. So is there a way that you could describe it where I would have a problem even trying to describe it on the IT side. I'm trying to ask you to describe your way of it. So for the IT side, that if someone could imagine a database code and how to move the data and the structures and you have to create those structures. You have to be smart enough. I dislike using the word smart, because then I would feel bad that if someone can't do it, then I'm calling them not smart.
And I think maybe something like that it can be a learned skill, and then some people are better at it or can get that type of skill faster than someone who's acquired it over some. And I think it's similar in law, right? There's like some people that are just naturally smart, and they kind of pick up on skills that you need to be very persuasive and very influential, and they can kind of grasp that right away. Whereas someone who is maybe not as smart, I guess, but they can develop that muscle over time. They just need more experience. So I think it's probably just a matter of time. But like any career, you've got like a 20 between 20 and 30 years, right? So 20 or 40 maybe year, right? So for people who are quote unquote smarter or pick it up, right, they can utilize that particular skill set for a longer amount of time, where someone who has to develop that skill, they can really maximize it for obviously less time. So no, I think I mean, just even going probably in every instance of school, right, there was people who are smarter or picked up ideas faster than some of the other students. And same thing in law school. Some people just like got it right away. They were like very persuasive, and they were kind of the superstars, and where they end up, and like anything in life, right? Where some of them end up really well, like, hey, I'm not surprised. Some of them ended up with like, hey, what happened to you? You were like the smartest kid in school, and that's just the way life is. But yeah, there's kind of varying degrees of grasping at particular strategies and skill sets, and it's a matter of just maximizing it for the time that they have.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I've sort of been going the perspective that if someone can't grasp that programming those concepts, if they can't see it, then I kind of give up on them. Not in the business world, time is money, so they either got it or they don't. You got to move on. I want to say I don't have the time, but it's the company. At that point, I'm a person on the hiring team, so I have to decipher, does this person have it or this person doesn't? And
you're not at beginner level. Like you're at a point where if you're hiring somebody, like, hey, you got to have the skills we need to do the job.
Some of the hires were fresh out of college, close to fresh out of college.
Yeah, but you still need the skills to do the job, right? That's That's the idea behind your disqualifying people.
I guess also I was trying to think, as this podcast, I feel that our angle is asking people about their careers so that listeners can listen and figure out if they even want to become a lawyer or a software engineer or real estate agent or accountant.
Don't be a real estate agent.
Now the interest rates went up. Don't be real estate agents.
No, that's not why. Everybody thinks it's a fun job, but it's commission only. So it's a long odds game. There's too many realtors. There's like 15,000 in Las Vegas, and it's commission only. So unless you can figure out how to come out the gate and make enough commission to pay your bills, like it's not a good equation. Again, if you can get started in it without risking your salary or your lifeline or the money you need every month, then the more exposure and practice you can get without needing those commissions is a good stepping stone into it. But not a good. People just, they get inspired and they go, oh, I love it. I love looking at houses and I can do that too. And I see so many people. It's like 80% of first year licensees do not renew, and 60% of all agents in Las Vegas are doing 0 transactions a year. So it's unless you got an in, like if you got some way to drum up transactions, then.
So as kind of like the journey in real estate, what would you describe as a realistic journey, a decent realistic journey as an attorney? So you mentioned go work at a law office. So maybe take that gap. You would have to, I forget, you guys, I think you answered it. Do you have to have some college then, or you don't have to have any college? Then go work at a law firm, see if you like it. What would be the realistic journey after that the whole process?
Dude, I watched 100 episodes of Law and Order.
And is Law and Order a bad example?
Yeah, Law and Order is a pretty bad example. Yeah, CSI.
Oh man, this is going to be a TikTok clip.
Whatever is on TV, right? So I think realistically, like I would say, if I were to do it over again, obviously go to college. I'll probably take a gap year to kind of just more so, not so much go into law school, but kind of realize what life is really like, right, after school. If I decide to go to law school, and if I'm lucky enough, I go work at a law office to see if I really want to do it. I understand not everybody will have the opportunity to do it. So if you really want to go to school, just apply. But I would say as early as you can, get as much experience as you can in the office, so that if it's not right for you, and I've had mentees that say, hey, I'm not coming back to school. I say, yeah, that's fine. It's not for everybody. Or at least they can cut it off after the first year. And, they're not
cut your losses.
Cut your losses, essentially, right? Sunk cost fallacy. So.
But what's the probably ballpark price for working in a law office when you're starting out? So the clerk, you said, so probably
clerk, you're probably close to minimum wage because you don't need a degree, right, to do it. obviously if you do well, I'm sure there's opportunities for raises and moving up, but you're probably looking at minimum wage or just slightly above
And then
minimum wage.
You're there for the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, well, I guess if I was interested in becoming an attorney, if an audience member is interested, they'd have to financially think about it. Like they'd be on minimum wage for a little while, go to college. Once you get out of college, then you would go work for another law firm, but hopefully would you get a higher title, or what would be a realistic good approach?
So you could be a law clerk, but typically it can be used in different ways, but the most common term for law clerks outside of kind of the courtroom is, typically they're law students and they work on cases under the supervision of an attorney. So they'll use skills that they've learned from law school to apply to the work. Now, like Supreme Court justices, they have law clerks that are licensed attorneys, but you can kind of see the difference, right? It's like that's a law clerk for Supreme Court justice versus a law clerk for the solo attorney who runs a family law office, in Huntington Beach, California.
That's the NFL.
NFL
Supreme Court is a pretty highfalutin court.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the range of how the term law clerks can be used. It just depends on context. But you can move to another firm if you want, if it allows you to, I guess, grow, right? If you're stuck into doing particular things, or you want to experience a different area of law, try going for another firm. But in general, just get exposure as to the practice of law every day, because again, family law is much more emotionally driven. Bankruptcy kind of a little bit.
So you've decided you love law and you've done a little bit of work as a clerk, and you go through law school, and we haven't discussed the bar exam.
Yeah.
Why is it called the bar exam? What's bar mean?
Yeah, I have no idea, because the attorneys they'll use is I need an attorney barred in California, but in the normal context, like barred means you're not allowed to go in.
Yeah.
So to me, it never made sense. But in the context of attorney, I don't know why that term, but that's what it is. But yeah, so in California, they changed it. When I took it, it's actually 3 days.
Yeah.
Now it's 2 days. Okay. And if you go to a American Bar accredited school, you can typically you can take the test in pretty much every state. Okay. If you go to like California, they allow only the state of California will accredit California only schools.
Yeah.
It's one of the few states that will do it. So then you can take, this is what Kim Kardashian did. She took what's called the baby bar. So if you go to a California owned school, or I think maybe even a non-accredited school, you have to take what's called the baby bar first year law school exam in order to take the actual bar exam like 2 years later. Okay. Yeah. What Kim Kardashian is actually doing an apprentice program. So you actually don't even know to go to law school. And I think it's probably a better route to take. Education. It's I'm a little bit conflicted too, in the sense that the bar exam is not really a true barometer of how you will be as a lawyer. It's kind of like gatekeeping, right? It's like it's supposed to be a test of minimum competency, but the actual practice of law is really high. There's some parts that's related, but for the most part, the consensus is not really. So a lot of people don't like the bar exam, but the same people will tell you, well, that kind of keeps the riffraff out, and so to speak. But I think Abraham Lincoln did the same thing. They did an apprentice program. So California, you don't need to actually go to law school to become an attorney. It's very, very few states you can apprentice do it. But the hard part is actually finding an attorney that will let you do that, because it's not well known.
Time and effort, right?
Is that time and right? And they probably will expect something back too, right? If I'm going to put 3 or 4 years into you, and if you pass the test, you're going to work for somebody else, then like, shoot, I'm burn twice, once shy, or something like that.
So even with that apprenticeship, you still have to take the bar exam afterwards?
Yeah, you have to take the bar exam.
So you're saying you suggest it just because it makes the bar exam easier in itself?
No, it doesn't cost you money to go to law school.
Yeah, one does it cost you, and then two, I think you get better idea of what the actual practice of law is.
Okay.
The downside is that typically going to law school will teach you the skills to take the exam itself, right? And unless you're kind of studying that on your own, you can get a private tutor and stuff like that, but it's a lot different, right? Studying for the exam, versus I'm in law school every day, and every little day I'm kind of building my skills a little at a time to take this test.
So you may have to ELI 5, explain it like I'm 5. So you take the gap year, you then
get a clerk job,
and then you decide you do like being in law. So then would you go GED then find the
no, GED's for high school.
Oh, I'm sorry. General ed for college. Do you have to do general?
No, you can go straight to apprentice if you're charming and you find a attorney that will put some time into you.
So when you're done with that, though, then on your resume you would have, I was apprentice for 4 years. I passed the bar. Was that? But you wouldn't have a bachelor's degree.
Well, once you have the bar exam, then you don't need a bachelor's degree.
In the lawyer world, in the attorney world, would people care?
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Because you're licensed.
Like, I think Kim Kardashian is kind of a aberration. The people and there was a guy on Reddit who did an AMA on this one too, reading for the bar. He was actually a paralegal for like 10 years. Right. So he was familiar with inner workings, and the job he was just going to, my understanding, he was going to just stay at the same firm. So nothing's really changed as far as work, but he can bill more.
Yeah.
Right. And he's has a license now. So he was just going to stay with the same firm, but like technically, I don't believe you even need to go to college or have a college degree to become, The other thing is actually you have to pass the moral character examination process, right? So there's some people who like they go through law school, they pass the bar, but they can't pass this particular part because they got a felony or something. It happens more often with people who like got arrested, go to jail, and they kind of turn their life around, right? And then they go to law school, but they can't pass this particular part because they got a felony. So they have to they either have to advocate themselves or have someone else advocate, hey, turn their life around and things like that. There was one guy I remember I was reading on the news. He was a undocumented immigrant, but he went to law school, and if you're undocumented, you can't get usually don't get a social security number, right? So he can't go work for somebody else. So he opened up he was planning to open his law firm, but if I remember correctly, his undocumented status like hurt him in the moral application process. I don't know what, I think they eventually like let him through, but things like that, right? Most people don't have an issue with the moral examination process, but like for the handful of few, right? It can really, you've gotten like 99.9% of the way. There's like this one thing holding you up, and it kind of sucks.
That's weird because the American population has a really high estimation of the moral standing of our attorneys and lawyers. We consider them to be paragons of rightness and ethical moralness.
Spirit of law, or the letter of the law. But anyways, I'm having a hard time accepting your guys' answer.
You could just be an apprentice.
In the IT world, even if I got a help desk job and I wanted to get into programming, on the resume to have, it doesn't quite matter the name of the college, but it hugely matters that you just at least have a bachelor's degree in either computer science or
are you talking about a corporate job, like a big corporate company?
I find it I want to say pervasively.
I would imagine if you were a badass programmer and you could do everything, you could find somebody and go, hey, look, I could do all this stuff. Like, I can outprogram anybody. And then you could get hired somewhere.
I'm not saying that it's it's right or I agree with it. I think it's actually pretty stupid.
Yeah.
But it seems pervasive in all big corporations and small companies. If you are applying to become a programmer there, if you don't have a bachelor's degree, it's really tough.
So you'd have to start your own firm.
But I don't know if being an attorney is much. I feel like being an attorney might be easier to start your own firm than being a programmer to try to create your own programming business.
Yeah. Well, so to be an attorney, the state says you have to pass this test.
Mm-hmm.
Once you pass the test, then you're allowed to be an attorney.
Mm-hmm. No,
whether you can get somebody to hire you or not.
That's where I was kind of getting.
Okay.
It's a different game, right?
So I think if I understand your correct, I mean it was, I think he laid it out pretty good. Is there's the you're right. You're technically allowed to practice law, and then will someone pay you to do it,
Yeah.
right? And so, but I think the field for and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like, is there a lot of freelance IT guys that will work directly with the client versus subcontracting with another company?
It seems like maybe I'm wrong, but to me, the world that I've been through, it's mostly direct hires to companies.
Direct hires.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like for attorneys, it could be, I think the pool is bigger, right? So as a licensed attorney, we can go work for we can technically work for a firm. We could open up our own shop. And I think it's probably slightly easier opening your own shop, getting clients to practice a certain area of law versus an IT guy saying, all right, I'm a freelance programmer. Who needs some apps for your business, right? It's a little harder to do that.
Yep. I totally agree with that.
Oh, so if Dan had, if he has, he's passed the bar in California, he's allowed to be an attorney, he could go rent a little storefront and put a sign in the front that says immigration law or bankruptcies, right? And then you could put up a billboard and people will go, oh, I need to do a bankruptcy. I'm going to call this guy, right? And then I don't think there's any questioning of Dan sitting in his office at his desk.
Does that client come in and say, hey, I want to see your bachelor's degree type of thing?
No, they don't ask.
Yeah,
They don't ask
yeah,
you
exactly.
put some certificates up on the wall.
Yeah, yep.
And as long as you're not faking it, then
Yeah.
then they would go, hey, can you help me file a bankruptcy? And you go, yeah, sure. It'll cost you this much.
Yeah. No,
You could go straight into just doing stuff.
Yeah. So let's finish up that journey. So then say we did that apprenticeship, you got the bar exam done. Where would you realistically suggest, do they work at a firm as a paralegal for 4 years and then open up their own firm, or what's the realistic?
So as a career move, you probably want to get educated on someone else's dime.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can, go work for someone else and you kind of learn the ins and outs of that particular area of law. And, not everyone's entrepreneurial, right? So some people just like being an attorney and working on stuff, and that's okay too. And they just go stay in the job, and wherever they get kind of it's their time to leave, and they go to another firm that does the same thing and stay there for hours long. For other attorneys who a little bit want to run their own business, run their own shop, then when it's time for them to leave that first job, then they can open up their own shop and do that.
Well, paralegal is a different track, right? Is that you get a certificate or something?
So there's paralegal certificates. So my understanding is, you can go to school, you can get a certificate. I'm trying to think, are paralegals like kind of licensed or not, at least in California, whether you can call yourself a paralegal. I think maybe in California. But I'm not surprised, at least in other states where like you're not formally educated or has a formal certificate, but you can put yourself out, or at least their title is paralegal, right? And there's paralegals that like they know their stuff, and like they know just as much as an attorney, if not more, because they've been doing the same thing for 20 years versus a new attorney out of school who's never done anything in that area, and they're learning from the paralegals.
So what does a paralegal do? Are you doing lawyer stuff under a lawyer, or?
So the
Let's see.
so I mean, it depends obviously on each particular firm, but you think about the economics, the most valuable time the attorney could contribute to his or her firm is the billable time working on the clients, right? Because if it's on a traditional model where they bill by the hour, it doesn't make sense for the attorney to go make copies for, let's say, 10 minutes because of a huge stack, when you can be billing for $300 reviewing documents or writing a contract or doing something else. So that's why they have the support staff. So there's legal secretaries that they're kind of one step in the hierarchy of paralegals are similar to like maybe even physician's assistants or nurse practitioners, right? They're not doctors, but they probably know just as much of the medical knowledge and application. Really, and at some levels, really paralegals they just don't have the license to do what they need. But the really good ones can sometimes bill at the lowest or even maybe the medium hourly rates for attorneys because they're so valuable.
Okay.
I'll answer the question, but I'll ask it first. What would you change if you could about the industry of attorneys? So in IT, I wish that they would take away the stupid bachelor's degree requirements on a bunch of these jobs. I think it's stupid because, like you're saying, that you said earlier, if a programmer knows how to fucking do it, then just hire them.
Yeah.
I'm going to play devil's advocate on that. I think I do value the bachelor's degree in the sense because it should quote unquote give that person a wider range of knowledge in programming. It should, but not. There's plenty of people I've worked with that have a bachelor's degree, and I scratch my head like, what the fuck did you do with those 4 years of your life? So I would suggest for the industry to remove the bachelor's degree requirement, but figure out a way to test people. Some of the tests that they have, I think I do dislike that too. They'll do like those. There's like a programming test, like you have these numbers, a sequence of 5 numbers, figure out the 6th number, but programmatically build something that does that. And then some of them are good. Some of them, to me, feels like I have never in 20 years have I been at a job that I had to figure that out, if that makes sense. That
it's not a useful skill.
It's not the devil's advocate side is if your brain could figure that out, hopefully you could figure out almost anything on the business. So I kind of get it. I wish there was a better system. So remove the bachelor's degree. And then also a second thing that I would suggest in the programming world, remove the stupid academic questions in interviews. Meaning, so what I may learn at a programming school, like, I'm trying to think of an example.
Object-oriented stuff.
Why are manhole covers round?
Actually, probably closer to that one. So, object-oriented programming. Let's find a better term. What is an abstract object? Describe an abstract object. I hate that because why should I give you a textbook definition to get this job? I should be able to do something with my fingers on the keyboard to create you the code that gets you what you want. I understand. I'm going to play the devil's advocate. I understand that means hopefully if you know that answer, then hopefully you went to get your bachelor's degree. But there should be some other system that's better than re-asking textbook questions. That's
how tests work.
On top of that, on the job, I will never ever. that one's even more. I feel like even more
useless.
Yeah. Certain definitions. I'm not going to use that definition. I had one. I forget what it was. Like a year ago, I was working with Oscar, a programmer friend, and we had this thing that we were working on trying to figure it out. And then he figured out how to do it. I'm like, how did you know that to use that? I forget what it was. It was a first in, first out list. I forget what it was. And then he's like, yeah, I remember that because I went to school 20 years ago. I remembered it in that class. I'm like, you remember like something 20 years ago? You just Google it. Why didn't you just Google it?
Yeah.
So it just feels like memorizing things nowadays when you have Google at your hands, it's not that useful. So anyways, back to what would you change about the industry of attorneys if you could?
I don't know if you can eliminate school, but Canada has this particular model, and it's called articling. You basically work for a law firm after, physicians have residency requirements, right, to become a doctor. Canada has articling, which basically means you go work for a law firm for 1 year after you finish. And I've heard this position from other attorneys that they think the third year should be working rather than being in class. So I would probably agree with that sentiment, is like get more practical experience, because it does come back to like the practice of law is vastly different from the schooling of law and even the bar exam. Yep.
Okay.
Done deal.
You said on that one was 3 years, and the third year was?
Yeah. So the law school is traditionally 3 years. So I've heard one person say, hey, instead for the third year, instead of being just regular classes like you would take to finish out your degree, it should be a whole year of basically interning.
So 2 years in the class and then 1 year out in the workforce.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
Cool. Any other?
We've solved all the world's problems.
Yeah, we drilled attorney industry pretty heavily. We could go into the final question section. We'll have a little bit extra time, so we'll just kind of bounce around on that. First question for you: What great daily habit or habits do you have?
And I don't do it every day, but what I like when I'm finding I'm most productive, I kind of just plan out my day and then kind of do a point scoring system. So I'll get like 1 point for doing this and 1 point for doing that, right?
Wait, you give yourself points?
Yeah. But it's like whose line is it anyways? The points don't count for anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love the analogy.
But it helps me really realize like I don't have to play at a maximum like level 10 every day.
Like Wayne Brady.
Right. I just want to do sevens every day. It's kind of like hitting singles, right? I just want to do sevens every day. Because if I go max out 10, I'm going to get burned out, right? So I really just want to get sevens singles every day. So as long as I get 7 every day, I'm pretty productive. You want to get
your triple doubles?
But last week I messed around and got it. So
that's pretty cool. So give me an example. Like, so I'm guessing it's not as mundane as like, okay, I'm going to take a shower today, so I'm going to give myself 1 point. But what are some examples?
So mine's kind of business oriented because I have my own practice, right? So there are certain things I kind of need or should be doing on a consistent basis. So it's like if I contact 1 to 5 leads, I'll get 1 point. If I call 6 to 10 leads, I'll get another point. If I get 10 to 50, I get another point. If I posted something on social media, not for personal reasons, but for marketing, that's 1 point. If I close the deal, that's another point. If I things like that, right? And then something personal, like, hey, if I tell my wife I loved her today, I'll get like 10 points or something.
That's easy. You can skip straight to that.
Yeah.
Do all this work.
Yeah.
So something I would give you a million points for. When I was kind of thinking about when I contact you, I saw that you're
points.
Yeah, you're an attorney. Then you were doing your podcast on YouTube. So I was thinking like, this seems like a really smart move for an attorney. Like, it's free advertising. It's not free advertising. It's your time, but it's smart advertising. I feel like if someone was looking for an attorney, if I was a business that I'm gonna potentially drop $5,000-$10,000 on, I don't know whether it be trademarks and paperwork,
LLCs,
all that stuff probably takes a lot of money. I want to invest my time in researching somebody that's not going to waste my time, or I want to invest money in somebody that knows their craft. So when I was kind of researching you ahead of time, I was thinking, man, it seems really smart that you're trying to go down that angle of YouTube and podcasting and whatnot. Do you think that other attorneys aren't doing that because they're
hiding their evil?
or or are they somehow? Do you eventually get so many clients that you don't have time to do that? You don't need to do that, or is it X amount of hours? You start looking at time as money, and
Yeah, I mean, think about like traditionally how lawyers bill too, right? And unfortunately, it's good in terms of salary and money, but it's really bad as an entrepreneur because you really think about you're changing time for money, right?
Yeah.
As a business owner, you really want to get out of that trap, right? But you know, kind of tangentially, right? You think about what's the highest use of attorney's time, at least for the firm, right? If you're a business owner like me, it's a little bit different. But like, hey, it's harder to quantify. Like, if a attorney working for like not their own firm, but they have a podcast, right? Unless you got a really good support from the owners, like, why are you wasting? Let's say even 2 hours, right? Because you got to go find the guests, then you got to set this whole thing up. You got to prepare, right? In the interviews, less than an hour, right? That's 2 billable hours, maybe even $600 that you're not billing for the firm, right? Yeah. But for me, I kind of just thought about it as you questioned it. Maybe in one sense, it's kind of like a billboard, right? If you look it up, hey, he's on YouTube, he's on Spotify, he's on Amazon, he must know his stuff, right? So for me, that was not so much the intent, because I kind of just like talking to people and learning their particular journey. But that's kind of the side effect of what I got from it. I don't particularly do it just to get clients, but it's kind of just a side effect of doing it, and apparently works.
Do you foresee by chance, could it play out where, say you're doing the podcast and your subscriber base goes just viral for some reason, like to the point, say you got 10 million subscribers. I guess you would question yourself, like, do I continue the practice or just go full YouTube? But my original thought was maybe you could up your hourly charge, because it's a supply and demand thing. There's a point where if you have 10,000 clients a month, you have to turn down
the poor people. Unfortunately,
yes. So then what my train of thought is, what if it's $500, $700 an hour, or whatever the fee is, and maybe you could bump it up to $1,200 an hour, $1,300 an hour if there's that demand.
Yeah, and that's really the economics of it, right? So I can charge more for my time, whoever wants. I can bring on other attorneys. I can hire attorneys to like do the work that I was once doing, and essentially it's marketing. If you think about it, at the end of the day, right? And just do this all day long, which I wouldn't mind. I like talking. It's just hard on. I know for musicians they have the throat spray, so right, so they can't talk a lot, or they gotta take care of their voice. But I mean, I like kind of spit hot fire on things like this.
There's special musician throat spray.
We should get that.
Yeah. So for public speakers and for musicians, because they singing a lot, and you talk a lot, they're sprayed to kind of protect, or I don't know if it's actually lubricating it, but it's to kind of protect. I believe Celine Dion doesn't talk the whole day because she's got performance at night. Is my understanding. So,
dude, I died on stage in karaoke last week. I just went up there with a dry throat and just murdered this song.
That's like trying to run a marathon with no training, right? You go for it.
I sing a lot.
Okay, all right. You got it's a muscle, man. You gotta.
Well, I think the marathon runners, they'll use Vaseline between the areas that chafe the legs.
Yeah.
Even on, I think, the armpit area. I think
I need a Vaseline in my throat.
You basically went on a marathon without Vaseline anywhere.
Yeah, no lube.
Actually, no, you went already dry, so your skin.
It was terrible.
All right, awesome. Next question. Oh shit, where am I? What do you know or think of cryptocurrency?
And a bunch of people lost their shirt on Luna last week.
Oh, Luna.
So you do know a little bit.
Yeah. I was I'm in a Telegram channel, and some people, before it went down, is very. I got into a little bit. If I were to pick one, that was before I got into Luna, I was kind of dabbling here and there, and then someone told me, "Hey, you got to go, get into Luna." And for me, I had the thing where like, okay, Bitcoin is like everyone knows Bitcoin, but I kind of just wanted to focus on one thing and just trying to master one thing, right? And then make my gains there. And so I was doing a little bit here, but then the stuff hit the fan last week, and everyone's all distraught. And I've read some analysis on it, and pretty sophisticated, as far as I can see, coordinated attack on the network. So the sad thing is that there's so much potential for blockchain and cryptocurrency, but something like this will make it like 4 or 5 steps backwards into mainstream adoption, and that's what kind of really sucks about things like this.
Yeah. So for our listening audience,
we aren't financial advisors. This is not financial advice. This is for educational purposes only,
and also not legal advice.
I've actually been able to take cryptocurrency as payment for like 4 or 5 years, but no one ever takes me up on it. Yeah, so I'm like, all right, whatever. I just do the old school way.
But Luna was somehow tied to a stable coin, and there was some trading back and forth scheme that would keep the other coin stable. And then some bad actors piled a bunch of money and leveraged it into an attack of some sort. That
nice. You know more about it than I do. I actually haven't been keeping it up.
I believe this is what happened. And then they basically sunk the value of Luna on purpose to figure out their own gain.
Wow.
So it's terrible that somebody was trying to set up a useful niche or utilization in the cryptocurrency world, and then these bad actors got enough money to purposefully tank it.
Yeah.
So that's I really relate with Dan saying that there's going to be some steps backwards now, because that erodes the trust and confidence of people in the technology. So it's frustrating.
Yeah. I'm for me personally, at least for my firm, I'm trying to figure out practical applications for blockchain and smart contracts, because I deal with a lot of contracts. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how I can really incorporate that technology into how I serve my clients. So that's kind of on the top of my head in the last couple of days since that. Yeah.
Being a software engineer, I'm a big cheerleader for blockchain, and also a very almost science fiction promoter of blockchain. I don't know. I see blockchain being able to change our world, and I think it will. And I fully think it will, to the extent of when you have something that can't be deleted, that changes everything. That can't be deleted, and also by chance, innately, it's a system that behooves every participant to work together for the betterment of the system and the betterment of them. In the case of Luna, I think that's an super unfortunate situation. I think my theory, I hope that eventually there'll be some type of identity blockchain. For years, I've been thinking about it. Hopefully I'll get some time in the future to actually program it and try to program it. But I think an identity program is necessary. I think that'd be one of the fundamental pieces that needs to be figured out. It's difficult. It's not an easy thing, because I would like biometrically do fingerprints, iris, facial recognition, and maybe even hair and DNA, get some type of blockchain that verifies identity that's hopefully unhackable, hopefully not hackable like Luna. And then everything ties into identity. Identity is the fundamentals that you have to figure out. But if that's done, then we could talk about contracts. We could have lawyers on a connected blockchain that talks to that identity, where if Emmett does something and I want to sue him, I could, with my wallet, my identity would tie to a wallet. My wallet could pay you as an attorney to go after Emmett, and everything would be connected in this sense. So identity is crucial for us humans.
For the record, I don't think it was hacked as much as it
manipulated.
Was it was like a corporate, like a financial takeover move.
Yeah. I've poorly worded that. When with blockchain, there's financial, with cryptocurrency, there's financial greed that's possible with humans.
Yeah.
And
it was a market manipulation.
Yeah. I think with blockchain, because it's decentralized, it's a scary wild west right now. Mm-hmm. But hopefully, I hope that identity blockchain could hopefully help. It wouldn't. I don't think it would solve it. I think there's still some hurdles to get through, but I think there would be a way to socially engineer it where you could hopefully get less scams and.
Yeah, because the Wild West turned into the great city of El Paso.
I don't know the history of that, but.
Well, no, the Wild West grew up into the modern world.
Yeah.
We live in now.
Yep. I was trying to think, like cowboys back then. Then I was thinking about those when you see in the movies where they have the nice shootouts, the fun shootouts.
That's fun unless you get shot.
All right, next question. Dan, what is the biggest problem for humans, and what should we do to fix it?
Probably overconsumption.
Oh, you greedy, gluttonous,
Yeah.
obese people.
What's a systematic way to fix it?
It's probably some sort of incentive. So I remember, like it was for the Amazon rainforest, right? So like how do you stop the particular groups from kind of essentially destroying the rainforest? So I think one of the governments said, we'll pay you not to do this. So that
don't chop down the trees.
Yeah. So like that's how they got them to stop it. But I mean, like, as you guys know, like Lake Mead is like at its lowest level. Southern California is already, facing droughts, like really severe droughts. And like, there's much people trying to solve this issue, much more smarter than people than me. But I think it kind of really just comes down to incentive. The only problem also is like, there's like mass hysteria, right? Because it's like there's the FOMO. Hey, the water's running out. If I don't get mine, I'm never gonna get. It's kind of like the toilet paper issue, like 2 years ago, right? Yeah. And like we saw, like when it really wasn't a big issue. But I think when it comes to things like water and food, where it's daily essential living, I think it's gonna get more intense. And unless the human mindset changes on that and human behavior changes, I don't know a solution for that.
I've been thinking about for the last probably month or so that I'm going to connect it. I think if we could put a value on morality and consumerism, we're as a capitalist economy, we seem to put value on everything from the time of an attorney, how much per hour, to how much this microphone costs, to the cost of this cup. And even, I mean, I could buy a bottle of water and fill up this cup. So there's a value of that. There's a value of that water. The thing that I feel that we're missing as a society would be the value of morality. And that's a gray area. It's almost like spiritual woo-woo that I'm about to say, but
no, we have that. We have a cost for getting caught doing criminal things.
Which is weird because we're able to almost value criminal activity, but why can't we put value on morality? Meaning, if a company produces green energy, but I know devil's advocate person could say, well, government gives green credits to that company, but it feels like it's not enough. It needs to be more where we need an overhaul of our entire government where morality is actually the focus, where it behooves a person, just like blockchain, to work with the system, then fight it.
There's only one way I've seen governments get overhauled in human history.
Riots. No, I do not suggest rioting, YouTube.
No, riots don't even do that. Riots just destroy stores.
Oh. Big protests?
Nope. You can protest all you want. You can hang out in the park with your signs all day long. Rich people don't care. War? Yeah, that's the only way you overhaul a government, right?
Okay. I was kind of thinking riots would lead to protest leads to riot, then to war, but
or revolution, right?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about that morality thing. I don't know how. I don't think. I mean, just as capitalism is a ongoing test, it really is. It's just. I mean, we're just living. That's how.
Experiment.
Experiment. That's the better word. Yeah. So I think to experiment morality, I don't know. I think it'd be great because as children, it feels like our parents teach us be good humans or whatever, or even in school books. It seems in the stories when you're young, that seems in there. But when you grow up, I feel like it's the opposite.
Well, I'm very nice, except when I'm greedy. Right? I want the world to be a better place. I like everybody to do well, but I still drive this V8 truck and I'm sucking down a lot of gas to go eat my double cheeseburger because it's delicious.
Yeah. If we had some type of moral code written in there, maybe the burgers could cost more, but not for taxes, but across the board, if everyone is more equal, the burgers, the whoever's cooking the burger, wherever that meat came from, that farmer, hopefully the money would spread out better. Maybe I'm being too socialist in my thoughts.
Yeah, you just socialized my double cheeseburger.
All right. Next question.
No mustard.
Mustard, hopefully, is not Dan's favorite food. What is your favorite food or dish?
I like mi quang, but if I had to pick a non-Vietnamese dish,
go ahead, describe that dish for people that don't know that dish.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, what's a...
Yeah, so it's an egg noodle. It's yellow. It's hard for me to describe the broth, but typically it's served with pork and peanuts, and it's kind of a cracker, benchang, right? It's kind of a cracker with I think it's sesame seeds. Yeah. So that's my favorite, probably one of my favorite dishes.
So is it spicy or salty?
You could it's savory, right? It could be spicy. You can add, chili paste to it if you wanted to. I like it a little bit spicy.
I would probably describe the soup broth. So it's a noodle soup. You got the egg noodle, and then I would describe the broth as probably either pork or beef, but you could probably get away. I've been seeing my wife, cook with chicken broth or chicken powder, actually.
Heresy.
And I wouldn't be able to tell. Like, it to me, just there's a savory meat flavor to the broth, and then is there the fried shrimp?
Not the shallots, right?
No, the fried shrimp that it's like in a wonton, like, so that maybe I'm thinking of a different dish. Yeah. Okay, then there's also, he's talking about, there's like there's a fried rice chip. It's like the size of a big chip,
like a tiny rice cake.
It's kind of like between a cracker and a rice cake. Okay. If you've had like rice paper, it's a kind of derivative of rice paper. Yeah.
And then there's the sesame seeds in that, and they'll fry it, and then so it ends up being like a chip or a cracker. Yeah.
Right.
That sounds interesting to have that on a soup.
Yeah.
It's just going to add a whole bunch of texture and complexity.
Correct. Exactly.
Right. So you have peanuts with it, and the cracker, right? You eat it kind of early enough, then it'll give a little crunch to it. So we have that with the lettuce, or you have bean sprouts with it.
And then is it the tetsasiu? Is that the meat? Is it the red pork meat?
I think that's it. I know it's pork. So it depends. Like, you at home, right? You don't make it really super complicated. You get the restaurant, they put it like that processed shrimp on the bamboo stick that they stick it in there. Right. So it's you can get all crazy with it, but I'm pretty...
And then I think also I've seen where they've done the egg noodle, where they've actually had is it wonton or dumpling? Like I forget what it's called. Anyway, sometimes you get to add other things in that soup too, so it's pretty versatile.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to go into a non-Vietnamese dish.
I mean, it's kind of related, but pad thai, pad tew is one of my favorites. But a Penang curry is probably up there too. And Thai, the Thai dish, and the Mexicans have this dish, or I've had at a Mexican restaurant. It's actually raw spicy shrimp that they cook it. They cook it in lemon juice. So they'll serve it raw, but they'll put lemon juice or lime juice all over it, and you can eat it raw. It's fine. Yeah. But it's really good. So typically when I go to a Thai restaurant, it's kind of one of their more expensive dishes, but if I can get it, or sometimes it's off the menu, so I have to ask for it.
Yeah. I've heard of that before. I haven't seen it on Thai menus up here.
It's not, they don't have it everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the name of that dish?
I don't know, but I've heard of people cooking shrimp with lemon or lime juice.
Yeah, call it raw, spicy raw shrimp or raw shrimp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like a Mexican ceviche, but just Thai style.
Kind of. They're very similar in the sense that it's raw shrimp and they cook it in lemon, a lemon or lime juice. But they obviously the flavoring is slightly different.
out of curiosity, so for was Vietnamese food kind of off the menu for you at any point in your life? Let me explain my story. So, being raised in Santee, San Diego, which is very white, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like all the white people that I saw. So for a time in my life, I was actually trying to eat less Vietnamese food to eat more steak and potatoes. But as I got older, I found that because of the upbringing, the foods that my mom and dad would cook, I'm much more suited, or what's a better word? I could eat Vietnamese food almost every day and not get bored of it. Whereas if I were to have a burger every day, I couldn't do it. I love burgers, I love steaks, but I couldn't eat it every meal.
What about pizza?
Ooh, pizza actually happens to be one of my top favorites. Could I do pizza every? I probably couldn't. It'd be close.
I could do it if I could do a different pizza chain every day.
Domino's, Pizza Hut,
different
Little
flavors.
Caesars. All right. Final question for you, Dan. Shout out 2 friends that should do this podcast.
2 friends that should do this podcast. I'm trying to think who has a career that you want to talk about here.
Somebody who has a window into a world that we never get to see, right?
And maybe my friend Jeff Bautista. He was a government contractor for a number of years, and then he opened up his own shop doing marketing and web design for clients. I think he would be good. He's got a pretty good journey. He's heavily involved in the business community down here, so I think he would be pretty good.
Jeff Bautista, we want you.
Yeah. Who else? My friend Alex Kim, I think, would be good. He's in public service. He works for one of the Congress people down here in Orange County, but he's worked in like the intersection of private companies and public service. So he's worked for government affairs for the gas company. He used to work under the administration for Arnold Schwarzenegger here when he was California. So I think I've interviewed him. He's actually on my podcast on the same topic, but I think I think he'd be a good person to talk to.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do you have a drink to cheers for the end?
I finished it. There's my bottle of water here.
Cheers, Dan. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. Thank you for showing us what we didn't know about being a lawyer or our attorney.
3 years of law school in 3 hours.
Cut.